The wind howled across the frozen wasteland, an endless expanse of ice stretching toward the horizon. Inside the International Arctic Research Station in Svalbard, Norway, Zrenia insulated from the brutal cold, a group of scientists huddled around a microscope, examining a sample retrieved from deep within the permafrost. After days of drilling in the sub-zero temperatures, they finally reached the adjusted depth, pulling a 3-foot or 1-meter-long ice sample from the frozen ground. The freezing and thawing cycles of nature through thousands of years were a peek into the past. The gases trapped in the ice gave a look at the atmosphere, oxygen levels, CO2 concentrations, as well as many fossilized organisms. Dr. Li Wen, chief scientist for the People's Republic of China, peered through the eyepiece, her breath fogging slightly in the chill of the lab. The frozen core sample lay in a petri dish, the microscopic parasite locked in ice as it had been for thousands, maybe even millions of years. It was perfectly preserved, its twisted, thread-like form coiled inside the frozen droplets like a dormant serpent.
"This is incredible," said Dr. Wen, looking up from the microscope and over the glasses sitting low on her nose.
Dr. Roger Lund, a Norwegian forensic archaeologist, sat arms crossed studying the monitor.
Look at that. A fully intact organism. It doesn't look like any known parasite. Have you ever seen anything like it?
Dr. Wen shook her head.
"Not in this state, no. Whatever this is, it's ancient. But frozen like this, it's harmless."
Dr. George Petrov, a geologist in Russia.
"This ice is over 30,000 years old, older than human civilization itself."
Dr. Wen, intrigued, adjusting focus in the microscope.
"A parasite, frozen in time. No metabolic activity, no movement. But the structure, it's incredibly advanced. The curious thing is, it's a parasite with no host. We've examined how many hundreds of samples at this point and found nothing. Yet here, this little guy is. Where did he come from? I've got so many new questions."
Dr. Christopher Carter, the Canadian scientist sent by NOAA, sat skeptical, arms crossed.
"It's not moving, not doing anything. Just another microbe trapped in ice. I swear you guys get so spun up over every little bug we find in the ice. Sometimes I wonder what it is we are doing here, besides freezing our asses off."
Dr. Petrov, smirking, tapping glass of Petri dish and laughing.
"Well, freezing our asses off, as you say, is part of the fun, is it not? I mean, really, what else would you be doing? Probably sitting in some dusty library in the corner."
Dr. Carter moved over to the monitor, looking at it, intensely shifted in his seat and said,
"That is one ugly little bug. Oh, and by the way, George, we do have the internet in Canada. I don't need to go to a library anymore."
Dr. Lund, closing his logbook and notes, sighs.
All right, let's store the sample properly and continue analysis tomorrow. I want to run genetic sequencing. The last canister we have is on the shelf. I think we are at 47B for this drill site. Only 3 more to go till we can move on.
Dr. Wen places the petri dish and larger core sample containing the frozen parasite inside a containment freezer. The electronic lock beeps, securing it inside. The scientists finish logging their findings and power down the lab for the night. At some point during the night, while the station slept, a mechanical beep echoed softly through the empty halls. There was a red flashing light piercing through the darkness. Containment freezer had malfunctioned. Its internal temperature rose steadily, unseen and unaddressed, as the frost around the petri dish began to melt. By morning, the once frozen parasite had thawed completely, mixing with the now liquid remnants of its icy prison. When Bill Ramirez and Callum Nilsson arrived for their shift early that morning, they stood in the lab doorway, staring at the puddle of water that had leaked from the malfunctioning freezer. A thin sheen of moisture coated the counter and had begun pooling onto the floor.
"Great,"
Bill muttered, grabbing a mop.
"Another fucking mess to clean up. Dude, seriously, I can't wait to collect my check and fly my happy ass back home."
Callum sighed, already reaching for a towel.
You'd think these scientists would at least try to keep things dry and contained. I mean, like, isn't that kind of their job?
The 2 men worked efficiently, wiping down the surfaces, soaking up the water, and wringing it out into a nearby bucket. The liquid seemed harmless, just melted ice, but the invisible danger lurking within it was already at work. Tiny parasitic organisms clung to the fibers of the towels, the strands of the mop, and most dangerously, to the skin of the men cleaning it up. Neither of them noticed anything unusual. With their shift complete, Bill and Callum headed to the cafeteria for one last meal before their departure. The rotation was over, and soon they'd be on helicopters heading back to their respective homes. Bill to Ontario, Canada, and Callum to Norway. Callum sipped his coffee, leaning back in his chair with a satisfied sigh.
I can't wait to see my grandmother. She's still in the hospital, but she's stable. I just need to be there, you know? She's like 80, sweet as can be too. It just breaks my heart seeing her like that. Cancer is a real motherfucker.
Bill nodded as he buttered a piece of toast.
Yeah, I get it. My mom's in a nursing home back in Ontario. Doesn't remember much anymore, but she still smiles when I visit. Makes it worth the trip. She still remembers me for now, but I know time is short. Hell, I wouldn't even be doing this shit-tier assignment if it was for her. I had some American doctors come in and help treat her, and that shit costs money, you know?
They sat in quiet reflection for a moment, each lost in thoughts of home. Neither noticed the microscopic invaders already inside them, multiplying, spreading, changing. Hours later, Bill and Callum stood on the wind-blasted helipad, shielding their eyes against the rotor wash as their transport arrived. They shook hands with colleagues and boarded separate helicopters, one bound for Canada, the other for Norway. Far below them, in the depths of the research station, the contaminated towels had been tossed into the laundry bin, where two workers, Li Wei and Ming Xia, were already handling them. Ming grimaced as she wrung out a particularly soaked towel.
What even is this? Coolant?
Li shrugged, tossing another bundle into the industrial washer.
As long as it washes out, I don't care.
But no amount of detergent could wash away what had already taken hold. A few hours later, Li and Ming boarded their own flights home to China, completing the four-way spread of something ancient, something unstoppable. Back in the research station, Dr. Wen and Dr. Lun stared at the empty freezer, their stomachs twisting with unease.
No one signed the sample out.
Dr. Wen said, scrolling through the logbook.
It should be right here.
Dr. Lun frowned, running a hand through his hair, stress exuding from his facial expression.
Then where the hell is it?
A terrible silence settled between them. The answer was already thousands of miles away, inside the bodies of four unsuspecting hosts, heading straight for civilization. The Blight had begun.
We begin tonight with breaking news out of Ontario, where a mysterious illness has overtaken a long-term care facility, leaving staff and residents in a state of chaos. The World Health Organization and the CDC are monitoring the situation closely, as reports indicate an aggressive outbreak of what some are calling a neurological disorder with alarming effects. It started with confusion and memory loss among the elderly residents. At first, doctors believed it to be a worsening of pre-existing conditions, such as dementia. But within days, staff began reporting bizarre and violent behavior, residents lashing out, biting and attacking caregivers. Some of the infected were seen spitting a thick orange mucus before attacking, and emergency personnel on the scene have reported multiple injuries, with at least 3 staff members in critical condition. Officials say the cause of the outbreak remains unknown, but preliminary reports suggest a parasitic infection that targets the nervous system. Symptoms appear to progress rapidly, leading to extreme aggression and loss of cognitive function. For now, officials urge the public to remain calm. But with cases now being reported outside of Ontario, the question remains, is this an isolated event or the beginning of something far worse?
The surgical suite in the Ontario General Hospital was sterile, the sharp scent of antiseptic mingling with the underlying warmth of machinery. Bright overhead lights bathed the operating table in an unforgiving glare, illuminating the intensity etched on each member of the surgical team. The room buzzed with anticipation, the sound of electronic monitors beeping steadily, tracking the vital signs of the patient. The lead surgeon, Dr. Reynolds, gave dictation on the upcoming procedure.
Upon presentation, the 71-year-old female from the long-term care facility was experiencing a constellation of concerning symptoms, including the production of orange mucoid secretions, hypoxemia, and significant changes in mental status. The initial hypothesis centered around an influenza-like illness given the patient's comorbidities, notably late-stage Alzheimer's disease, which had already impaired cognitive function. These symptoms, including the unusual secretion and oxygen desaturation, were noted to be progressive, raising concerns for a more severe underlying pathology. On initial examination, her oxygen saturation was recorded as being suboptimal, in the low 80s, suggesting hypoxemia. Despite this, initial therapeutic interventions aimed at improving oxygenation, such as supplemental oxygen via nasal cannula, did not yield the expected clinical improvement. In fact, as oxygen levels were increased, the patient's condition worsened, with escalating respiratory distress and paradoxical responses in her vital signs. This unusual deterioration following oxygen supplementation raised concerns for a potential exacerbating condition, which tomography, CT scan, and magnetic resonance imaging, MRI, of the brain. The initial MRI revealed an abnormal mass located within the brainstem, a critical area of the brain responsible for essential autonomic functions, such as respiration, heart rate, and blood pressure regulation. The mass was observed to be approximately 1.5 centimeters in size and exhibited significant hyperintensity on T2-weighted images, suggesting it was either a neoplasm or an abscess. Over the course of the next 24 hours, a follow-up MRI was performed, which showed a marked increase in the size of the mass, now measuring approximately 4.5 centimeters, a threefold increase in volume. Furthermore, the mass had taken on a distinctive rope-like morphology, a pattern that raised suspicion for a central nervous system infection, possibly related to a mycotic or parasitic etiology, or an aggressive neoplastic process like glioma or lymphoma. The rope-like structure suggested infiltration into surrounding neural tissue, which could explain the patient's worsening condition and her unresponsiveness to oxygen therapy. Given the rapid growth and critical location of the mass, an emergency exploratory craniotomy was scheduled to obtain tissue samples for further evaluation and to decompress the brainstem. Preoperatively, the patient's clinical status deteriorated with further hypoxemic episodes and the appearance of new neurological signs such as pupillary asymmetry, signs of brainstem dysfunction, including dysphagia, facial weakness, and irregular respiratory patterns, and worsening confusion. The attending physician sought surgical consultations from a multidisciplinary team, including specialists in infectious diseases, neurology, hematology, orthopedics, and the Public Health Agency of Canada. The collaborative approach aimed to explore all potential causes of the patient's symptoms, considering the complexity of her condition and the rapid deterioration observed despite standard interventions. Infectious disease specialists were consulted due to the possibility of an infection affecting the central nervous system, particularly considering the patient's immunocompromised state secondary to her advanced dementia and possible malnutrition from difficulty swallowing. The orange mucoid secretions, which appeared to be mixed with saliva, urine, and fecal matter, also suggested a possible underlying infectious etiology, such as a fungal or bacterial infection, or even a parasitic infestation. Given the rapid progression of the mass, the infectious disease team recommended additional cerebrospinal fluid, CSF analysis, and blood cultures to rule out any central nervous system infections, such as meningitis or encephalitis, which could present with similar neurological symptoms. In conclusion, despite the administration of ivermectin, a widely used antiparasitic drug, its ineffectiveness in eliminating the parasite suggests potential resistance or other underlying factors. This resistance could stem from genetic mutations within the parasite, altered drug metabolism, or issues with drug absorption in the host. The continued failure of ivermectin emphasizes the need for further research into the parasite's mechanisms of resistance and calls for the development of alternative treatment strategies such as combination therapies or novel drug classes. Ongoing studies are crucial to improving therapeutic approaches and ensuring better management of parasitic infections. Neurology and hematology specialists were brought in to evaluate the potential for a neoplastic process, particularly given the rapid growth of the mass and its aggressive morphology on imaging. The rope-like appearance of the mass raised concern for a glioma or lymphoma, and the hematology team also considered the possibility of a hematogenious spread of cancer, given the patient's age and comorbidities. Neurological consultation also highlighted the potential for mass effect on the brain stem, leading to the observed respiratory dysfunction, dysphagia, and cognitive changes. An urgent biopsy was planned during the craniotomy to determine whether the mass was a neoplastic lesion or an infectious process. Given the complexity of the case, the Public Health Agency of Canada was consulted to consider potential outbreaks or emerging infectious diseases that could present in such an unusual manner, particularly in long-term care facilities. The agency reviewed the patient's medical history and the potential for a rare infectious etiology, such as a novel viral infection or a rare parasitic infection like toxoplasmosis or amoebic encephalitis. They also considered the possibility of environmental factors contributing to the patient's clinical presentation, such as exposure to contaminated food, water, or healthcare-associated infections.
Dr. Reynolds stood at the head of the table, his eyes focused and determined. The patient lay unconscious, intubated and sedated, with continuous monitoring showing a steadily compromised vital state. The anesthesiologist adjusted the gas flow, while the surgical technician prepared the instruments for the delicate procedure ahead. Dr. Reynolds stepped forward, gloved hands steady, as he prepared to make the initial incision along the midline of the scalp. The dura mater, the tough outer membrane covering the brain, would need to be carefully dissected to avoid causing additional trauma. As he performed the craniotomy with a high-speed drill, he ensured that the burr holes were placed meticulously to minimize damage to the surrounding brain tissue. Once the calvarium was removed, Dr. Reynolds was met with a grotesque sight. The parasite, a complex organism with tendrils and fibers that infiltrated the brainstem. The tendrils extended outward, infiltrating neighboring structures, including the midbrain and pons. Each filament pulsated around critical vascular structures, including the basilar artery and the vertebral arteries, illustrating the extent of its insidious infiltration.
The entanglement is worse than we anticipated,
he muttered to the team, his brow furrowed in concentration. The fibers snaked down into the cervical spinal cord, where they intertwined with peripheral nerves, potentially compromising motor functions and autonomic control over the host's bodily systems. Dr. Reynolds switched instruments to a pair of fine-tip microscalpels and microdissectors, carefully teasing apart the parasite's tendrils from the surrounding neural tissue. With every motion, he had to balance precision and haste. The longer the creature remained, the more control it exerted over the host's physiological functions. He noted how the organism's tendrils had even penetrated into the medullary respiratory centers, diverting oxygenation and further impairing the patient's ability to breathe independently.
There's a significant vascular involvement?
The neurosurgical resident cautioned as they spied tendrils encasing the internal carotid artery. Dr. Reynolds nodded solemnly. Any misstep could lead to catastrophic hemorrhage. Once the brain was adequately exposed, they had to carefully navigate around cranial nerves and important vascular structures to reach the central body of the parasite. With precision, Dr. Reynolds employed diathermy to selectively cauterize the foot-like anchor points that tethered the parasite to the neural tissue, preventing blood loss while ensuring minimal damage to the surrounding neurons. As they progressed, Dr. Reynolds initiated suction through an endoscope in order to clear the surgical field of serosanguineous fluid and debris, allowing for better visualization. This facilitated their access to the primary mass, which was pulsating ominously, almost as if it were alive and aware of its impending removal.
Have pathology get ready for immediate processing.
Dr. Reynolds instructed as the anesthesiologist monitored the patient's declining oxygen saturation. As Dr. Reynolds meticulously closed the dura mater, an unsettling realization coursed through him. The parasite, while significantly diminished in size, was not dormant. Even under general anesthesia, the increase in oxygen levels within the surgical environment had the potential to incite a heightened metabolic state in the creature. The invasive organism thrived on enriched oxygen, a fact that had been alluded to in preoperative discussions, but had not been fully appreciated until now. He watched intently as the anesthesiologist adjusted the oxygen delivery settings. Keep the FiO2 levels around 30%, he instructed. The last thing they needed during this delicate phase was for the parasite to rouse and exacerbate the already precarious situation. However, the patient's oxygen saturation continued to hover precariously, straddling the line between normoxia and hypoxia. The monitors blinked with dual alarm tones, indicating fluctuating saturation levels as if an unseen battle raged. As the surgical team continued their efforts to stabilize the brain after the removal of parts of the parasite, an alarming change occurred. The patient's vital signs began to fluctuate wildly, and moments later, the monitors blared a cacophony of distress signals. The oxygen levels had inadvertently crept higher than anticipated, and the physiologic response from the creature ensconced within the patient's body was immediate and violent. The stillness of the operating room shattered as the patient, previously unresponsive, suddenly convulsed on the operating table. Eyelids fluttered open, revealing eyes that glinted not with the awareness of the person they had known, but with a jaundiced primal ferocity. The host, now fully under the parasite's control, thrashed violently, dislodging cables and monitors as if possessed by an unrelenting force. Within seconds, she lunged toward the closest clinician, a surgical nurse, her hands clawing through the air like an animal driven wild. Saliva dripped from her mouth, a bile green liquid mixed with odd orange mucus that glistened grotesquely under the operating lights.
Secure her!
Dr. Reynolds shouted, his voice barely cutting through the chaos. But the patient was already on the nurse, gripping her wrist and sinking her teeth into the nurse's arm. She let out a scream of shock and pain, blood pooling and mingling with the vivid orange secretion now oozing from the patient's mouth. The surgical tech rushed forward to intervene, but the patient, now fueled by adrenaline and the parasite's ferocity, turned and struck. Her limbs flailed with uncharacteristic strength, the very instinct for survival twisted into an assault. The chaos escalated as the patient, locked in a battle for control, flailed her arms with a violence that betrayed the frail human beneath. Dr. Reynolds, realizing that time was of the essence, quickly assessed the situation. It wouldn't be long before the team found themselves overwhelmed.
Get security now,
he yelled, but there was no time to wait. The aggressive thrashing had sent medical instruments skittering across the floor. And despite the anesthesia still in her system, the parasite's grip was stronger than anyone had imagined. The surgical tech dropped the instruments and smashed the code button on the wall. Code Violet, the code for a violent combative patient. The hospital's intercom blared, Code Violet, OR, Code Violet, OR. The moment the alarm rang through the building, panic gripped the heart of the operating room. Dr. Reynolds and his team were already on edge, struggling to contain the patient who had gone from unresponsive to an out-of-control, violent force in a matter of seconds. The patient, her body twisted and contorted unnaturally against the restraints, was a vessel of the parasite's brutality. Her eyes were wide and feral, no longer the eyes of a human being, but those of a monster. She jerked violently again, thrashing her head side to side as if she could tear herself free from the shackles holding her down. The monitors screeched, flashing warning signals for the fluctuating oxygen levels, but none of that mattered anymore. The team's efforts to stabilize her were futile.
Hurry!
Dr. Reynolds barked. His voice was sharp, almost frantic. His hands trembled as he grabbed at the surgical tools in front of him, but nothing felt like it would help. The parasite inside her had taken control. He could feel it. There was nothing left of the woman who had once been.
We need security! Now!
He shouted. The moment he did, the door to the OR burst open. The first security guard entered, his footsteps heavy and filled with urgency. He had been prepared for something dangerous, but nothing could have prepared him for what was unfolding in front of him. The patient's mouth was foaming, her hands still shackled, but pulling violently against the restraints. Dr. Reynolds barely spared him a glance as he continued to monitor her vitals, his mind racing.
What the hell is going on in here?
The guard shouted, taking in the scene of blood and chaos. Before anyone could answer, the patient, her eyes now glowing with the feverish intensity of the parasite's will, suddenly snapped. In a blur of motion, she yanked her arm free from the restraint. Her hand shot out like a whip, grabbing the guard's wrist with terrifying strength. He grunted, struggling to free himself, but she was faster. Her mouth opened wide, revealing jagged, blood-stained teeth. The guard barely had time to react as the patient lunged forward, sinking her teeth into his throat. He gasped, shock and pain mixing in his eyes. As blood gushed from the wound, he let out a strangled cry, his hands scrambling at the patient's face, trying to pry her off. But she wouldn't let go. Her jaw locked like a steel trap, tearing into his flesh with a grotesque squelch.
Jesus Christ!
One of the nurses screamed, stumbling back against the instrument tray, sending scalpels and clamps clattering to the floor. Dr. Reynolds recoiled, his mind blank with horror. The patient was still restrained by her other arm and legs, but it didn't matter. The damage was done. The security guard's body convulsed before going limp, his knees buckling beneath him as he collapsed onto the cold, sterile floor. Blood pooled around him in an ever-growing crimson halo.
We have to get out of here.
Another nurse cried, her voice shrill with panic. But before anyone could move, another nurse, Maggie, rushed forward in an act of desperation. She reached out, instinct taking over, her hands grasping at the guard, trying to drag him back. That's when the patient turned on her with terrifying speed. The moment Maggie's fingers brushed against the guard's shoulder, the infected woman wrenched her head free from his torn throat and lunged. Maggie barely had time to react before the patient's teeth clamped down onto the soft flesh of her forearm. A scream ripped from her throat. The pain was immediate, searing onto the operating table. Maggie instinctively yanked her arm back, but the infected woman held on with unnatural strength, her jaw locked like a predator refusing to release its prey.
Help me!
Maggie shrieked, eyes wide with terror, as she struggled against the iron grip of the dying, or already dead woman. Dr. Reynolds acted without thinking. He grabbed a nearby scalpel and, with a desperate swing, slashed at the patient's arm. The blade bit deep, severing tendons and muscle, forcing the creature to loosen its grip just enough for Maggie to stumble free. She fell backward, clutching her arm, crimson spilling between her fingers. The wound burned, the flesh already looking sickly pale around the ragged bite marks. The door burst open again, and a second security guard stormed in. "Get back!" he shouted, his eyes darting between the writhing patient and the fallen guard. He barely had time to process the horror of the scene before he focused on the still thrashing woman on the table. She was half unshackled now, her mangled arm hanging half useless, but it didn't slow her down. Her remaining restraint creaked and groaned as she bucked wildly, foam and blood dripping from her lips. Her fingers clawed at his face, her nails raking deep, leaving bloody trails across his cheek. The guard recoiled, stumbling backward, his arms coming up in a weak attempt to shove her away. But she was relentless. With terrifying speed, she lunged, her teeth sinking into the soft flesh where his neck met his shoulder. The guard howled in agony, thrashing against her grip, but she latched on like a rabid animal, tearing and ripping at his flesh. Blood sprayed across the sterile white walls of the OR, the scent of iron thick in the air. "Get her off him," Dr. Reynolds shouted, but no one moved. The remaining staff stood frozen, paralyzed by sheer terror. Maggie clutched her own wounded arm, her breath coming in rapid, shallow gasps. The guard, now gurgling, his knees buckling, struggled weakly as the infected woman bore him to the ground. She ripped another chunk from his neck, her face a grotesque mask of blood and gore. His body spasmed once, then went still. The thing lifted its head, blood dripping from its chin, eyes wild and empty. It wasn't satisfied. It wanted more, and it turned its gaze on them. As the blood-soaked creature lifted its head, ready to pounce on its next victim, a nurse, acting purely on instinct, grabbed a towel from the nearby tray. With a desperate cry, she lunged forward, coming in from behind, and whipped the towel around the infected woman's face like a garrote. The cloth wrapped tightly over her mouth and nose, muffling her frenzied snarls. The nurse wrenched it back with all her strength, her arms trembling as she fought to keep the thing restrained.
Do it.
She screamed, her knuckles turning white as the infected woman thrashed against her grip. Dr. Reynolds didn't hesitate. His hands, still slick with blood, fumbled for the scalpel. With the towel tightly wrapped around the patient's face, muffling her growls, Dr. Reynolds stepped forward, his heart pounding in his chest. The nurse holding the towel was struggling to maintain control, her hands slipping as the patient bucked and twisted with terrifying strength. The towel was now soaked in blood, sticking to the patient's skin like a second layer. Dr. Reynolds steadied his breath, his hands shaking as he raised the scalpel high.
"Stay still,"
he muttered to himself, the words barely audible over the chaos. With a deep breath, he plunged the blade downward, aiming for the back of the patient's neck. The scalpel sunk into flesh with a sickening squelch, and he pushed it deeper, his knuckles white from the effort. He felt the resistance of bone, but he kept pressing, twisting the blade to cut through the spinal cord. The infected woman's body spasmed violently, her legs kicking and arms thrashing as she let out a strangled, garbled scream. The nurse holding the towel cried out, almost losing her grip. But the doctor didn't stop. With a final, brutal twist, he severed the spinal cord. The woman's body went limp, her muscles twitching once, then relaxing entirely. For a moment, there was a terrible silence. The only sound was the ragged breathing of the nurse and the soft drip of blood onto the sterile floor. Dr. Reynolds stood frozen, the scalpel still gripped tightly in his hand. His gaze was fixed on the lifeless body in front of him. He wiped the sweat from his forehead with the back of his hand, his pulse still racing. For a moment it seemed like the nightmare was over. But then the infected woman's mouth, still covered by the towel, snapped open, her jaw contorted in an unnatural way, her teeth gnashing wildly beneath the fabric. The nurse holding the towel screamed and jerked back, but the woman's hands shot up, grabbing her wrists with horrifying strength. The nurse struggled to break free, but the woman's grip was like iron, pulling her back toward the now quiet body.
No.
The nurse cried out, fighting. The patient's eyes, wide, wild, and filled with a sickening hunger. The nurse's arm trembled as she tried to break free, but the infected woman, even with the spinal cord severed, was still alive. Dr. Reynolds reacted instinctively. His mind raced as he saw the nurse's struggle. Without thinking, he grabbed a nearby surgical clamp and lunged forward. With a sickening crack, he smashed the clamp into the back of the woman's skull, the sound reverberating through the room like thunder. The woman's body twitched violently, her grip loosening just enough for the nurse to yank her arms free. But she wasn't done. Her body jerked upward again, her head lurching with unnatural speed. Her mouth was wide, snapping at the nurse, who was still reeling from the shock of the sudden attack.
"Get out!"
Dr. Reynolds yelled, pulling the nurse back, his voice shaking. The nurse stumbled, scrambling to the door, blood dripping from her hands, her face pale with terror. But before she could reach safety, the woman, what was left of her, lunged one last time. The force was enough to send the infected woman crashing into the nearby operating table, knocking instruments to the floor in a violent clatter. Her body twisted and convulsed as though the parasite controlling her was refusing to let her go. The doctor could see it now. She wasn't just fighting for survival. She was fighting to spread it. Dr. Reynolds stepped back, eyes wide with realization. The creature's ability to function, despite the damage, despite the severed spinal cord, was terrifying. It wasn't human anymore. The nurse made it to the door, slamming it shut just in time to block the woman's final, futile attempt to reach her. She gasped for air, her face white with the horror of the near miss. Dr. Reynolds stood frozen, the weight of what had just happened crashing down on him. The creature, still twitching and convulsing on the operating table, was beyond saving. It wasn't human anymore. It was a vessel for something much worse. He could feel the terror building in his chest, but his hands were steady now. The patient, if she could still be called that, was done. There was no hope for her, no more humanity left. He glanced over at the nurse, who was trembling against the wall, her eyes wide with shock. She was still breathing hard, but her hands were shaking uncontrollably, covered in blood. Dr. Reynolds swallowed hard. He had to end it. There could be no more hesitation. Moving with precision, he reached for a surgical knife. Something sharp, something that could get the job done quickly. He was no stranger to making hard decisions, but this was different. This was more than just a patient. This was the embodiment of everything that had been unleashed on the world. The woman's body jerked again, spasming violently, and the sound of her jaw snapping open and shut echoed in the room like a grotesque mockery of life. She wasn't dead, not yet. The parasite inside her wouldn't allow it. Dr. Reynolds moved swiftly, stepping toward the table. His face was grim, the horror of the situation etched deeply in his features. He couldn't afford to flinch. He couldn't afford to hesitate any longer. He positioned himself behind the patient, gripping the scalpel tightly in his gloved hand. The creature's body flailed in an almost rhythmic pattern, the eyes rolling back into its head as if it knew the end was coming. Without another thought, Dr. Reynolds plunged the blade deep into the back of the patient's skull, aiming for the brain. The creature's body twitched again, violent, reflexive, but this time it didn't rise.
Is anyone still breathing?
He called out, his voice hoarse. The nurse who had been bitten was slumped in a corner, clutching her torn arm. Her face was pale, the shock settling in as she tried to stem the flow of blood. Her gaze flickered up at him, eyes filled with a mixture of disbelief and fear.
I can't feel my arm,
she whispered.
Stay with me,
he said, rushing over to her, grabbing the trauma kit from the counter and tearing it open. You're going to be okay. The surgical tech was barely conscious, sprawled on the floor beside the first guard. His breathing was shallow, his hands clutching his bloodied face. One of his eyes was swollen shut, and the other flickered with barely enough life to focus. Dr. Reynolds knelt beside him, applying pressure to a wound on the massive laceration on his face.
You're gonna make it. Just stay with me,
he barked, trying to force the words through the panic rising in his chest. His hands were slick with blood. He wasn't sure if it was his or theirs anymore. But then, his heart froze for a moment. He glanced back at the first guard. The first guard, the one who had been mauled by the patient, he was still twitching on the ground. His body was a bloody mess. The patient's teeth had torn into his throat with brutal precision, and the life was draining from him quickly. The guard's blood pooled around him, staining the tiles beneath him a deep red. His hand twitched as if he was trying to move, but he was already too far gone. Dr. Reynolds' stomach churned. He stepped over to him, trying to check his pulse, but there was nothing. The guard's body lay still, his chest no longer rising and falling. Dead. There was no time for sentiment. The team had lost too many already. The first guard was gone, but there was no time to mourn. The nurse was barely holding on. The tech was fighting to stay conscious, and another guard had already fallen to the patient's violent attack. The room felt like it was closing in on him, suffocating him with the weight of the loss. But he couldn't afford to lose focus now. He couldn't afford to waste time. The second guard, still twitching, was fighting for his last breath. His eyes flickered open, a frantic desperation in them as he looked around the carnage, clearly trying to process the nightmare he had just witnessed. His hand, slick with blood, reached out weakly, grasping for something, anything, but he wasn't going to make it. Dr. Reynolds took a deep breath, steeling himself. There was no more time for hesitation. He moved swiftly to the second guard, kneeling beside him. The man's eyes locked onto his with a plea that was more primal than human.
You're done.
Dr. Reynolds muttered, voice rough, almost detached. He didn't want to say it, but there was no denying the truth. The second guard's injuries were too severe, too deep. With one last glance at the guard's struggling face, Dr. Reynolds closed his eyes for just a moment, then did what he had to do, ending the suffering before it could continue. The room fell into a heavy, suffocating silence. Dr. Reynolds stood, his body soaked in blood, his hands shaking. His chest was tight with the weight of the carnage. But it wasn't just the bodies in the room that weighed on him. The world outside these walls, if it even still existed, was collapsing. There were no more safe places, no more guarantees. He was running out of time, and the terror of what had happened in that room was only a fragment of the horrors unfolding elsewhere. The infection, the outbreak, what he had seen here was just a small piece of a nightmare that was bigger than any of them. As more nurses and doctors poured into the OR room to treat the surgical team and get them downstairs to the ER, and becoming infected themselves from all the bodily fluids in the room, Dr. Reynolds leaned back, wiping the sweat from his brow.
God help us,
he whispered almost to himself, but deep down, he knew the worst was yet to come.
Aaron Collins woke before his alarm, his body attuned to the rhythm of early mornings. Years of habit had trained him to rise before the world, before the chaos of the day could take hold. He lay there for a moment, listening. The soft hum of the fridge, the distant creak of the house settling, the rhythmic breathing of Odin at the foot of the bed. Just another morning. Just another day. He swung his legs over the side, joints popping in quiet protest as his feet found the cold hardwood. His body wasn't what it used to be. He was heavier than his army days. The extra 30 pounds a testament to years spent balancing work, stress, and a stubborn love for sweet tea. Speaking of, Aaron shuffled to the kitchen, grabbed the pitcher from the fridge, and poured himself a glass. The ice clinked against the sides, condensation already forming around his fingers. He took a long, deep sip, the syrupy caffeine jolting his system like a jump start to the soul. Coffee never did it for him. Sweet tea, though? That was his fuel, his vice, his necessity. Odin stirred by the door, his thick white coat barely visible in the dim light. The Great Pyrenees let out a low, expectant whine, tails sweeping against the floor in slow, heavy thumps.
Yeah, I know,
Aaron muttered, setting his glass down. He grabbed the leash from its usual spot, but Odin barely needed it. He was more of a partner than a pet. Loyal, protective, a damn good judge of character. The morning air was crisp, carrying the scent of damp earth and distant wood smoke. Aaron took a deep breath, savoring the stillness. The world always felt different at this hour, like it belonged only. The property, the dog moving with a quiet confidence, ears twitching at unseen disturbances. Out here, in the quiet of rural Ohio, the world still made sense. The air was clean, the land stretched wide, and problems felt smaller beneath an open sky. As they passed the chicken coop, Odin paused, his massive head tilting slightly. Aaron followed his gaze but saw nothing. Still, he knew better than to ignore the dog's instincts.
Something messing with my birds?
He muttered, stepping closer. The hens were restless, shifting in their roosts, clucking softly. No signs of a predator, no broken fencing, but Aaron made a mental note to check for tracks later. Maybe just a raccoon passing through. Maybe nothing at all. Odin huffed, but moved on, satisfied for now. By the time they circled back to the house, the first hints of dawn were creeping over the horizon, bleeding soft purples and oranges into the sky. Aaron rubbed the sleep from his eyes, stretching his shoulders. He wasn't as fast as he used to be, wasn't as strong, but he could still move, still push himself. And that was enough. He grabbed his gym bag from the mudroom, laced up his running shoes, and downed the last of his tea. Time to hit the track. The track was empty when he arrived, just how he liked it. Aaron took a few moments to stretch, and then took off at a steady pace. His 3 to 5 miles felt like a warm embrace, each footfall easing him into the rhythm of the day ahead. It wasn't the soldier's speed he once had, but it was enough to keep his body moving and the excess weight at bay. As the sky transformed from deep black to the soft hues of dawn, he savored the solitude. This was his time for prayer and reflection, something relatively new in Aaron's routine. He'd been on a spiritual journey for a while, but it wasn't until he met Tessa that he truly gave his heart to Jesus. Even before that, prayer had been something he tried to practice regularly, and somehow his fasted morning runs became the perfect space for it. Not forced, just natural. He had always been built for movement. Football was his life once, but those days felt like another lifetime. The speed was gone, the agility had faded, but the grit remained. His knees reminded him of every tackle, every sprint, every game under the lights. His lower back carried the toll of years spent crashing into opponents, pushing his body beyond its limits. But out here, in the quiet of the morning, he wasn't chasing running backs or dodging blockers. He was chasing clarity. The rhythmic pounding of his feet against the pavement became a kind of meditation, a time to unpack a lifetime of mistakes, trauma, and anger. The worries of the world faded, replaced by the steady cadence of his breath, and the whispers of prayers he hadn't realized he was saying. Out here, alone with God and the rising sun, he found something that had always eluded him on the field: peace. Eventually, he returned home, ready to prepare breakfast. Whipping up his regular protein shake was a ritual he performed with practiced ease. 2 scoops of protein powder, 2 fresh eggs from the backyard, a spoonful of reduced-fat Jif peanut butter, and a banana blended into a thick, satisfying drink. He downed it in a few gulps, fueling his mind and body for the short yet busy day ahead. Settled at his desk, the warm glow of the computer screen illuminated his workspace. Creativity flowed as he dove into his graphic design projects, bringing ideas to life for his clients. Despite the satisfaction that came with it, the nagging thought of his impending hospital shift loomed in the back of his mind, pulling him back to the present. After completing a flurry of tasks, Aaron quickly showered and gathered up his essentials: scrubs, a stethoscope, and some snacks to get him through the long evening ahead. As he readied himself, he caught Odin's expectant gaze, the unwavering loyalty evident in the dog's brown eyes.
Just a few hours, buddy. I'll be back,
he assured him, giving Odin one last scratch behind the ears before stepping out into the world. Driving to the hospital, familiar scents of antiseptic and distant beeping machines greeted him as he entered the building. The air felt thick with the weight of urgency and expectation, drawing him into his role as if it were a second skin. He slipped into the rhythm of the evening shift, monitoring patients, assisting nurses, and navigating the unpredictable nature of emergency medicine. Here, he was alive, engaged, and grateful for the chance to make a difference, even if just for a few hours. As the night unfolded, Aaron began to notice a disturbing pattern emerging among the patients. Numerous ISO carts lined the floor, each occupied by individuals battling different ailments, but a significant number were marked by a familiar and sobering affliction: Alzheimer's disease. It had been about 2 weeks following the emergence of neuroparasitic deterioration syndrome, NDS, in Canada. Reports of similar strange behavior were surfacing in surrounding states, including a few scattered tales reaching even rural Ohio. Aaron, ever vigilant, was beginning to connect the dots, though the full scope of the threat still eluded him. The hospital was quiet. Too quiet. Aaron had worked enough late shifts to know that silence never lasted. Something was always brewing. He was halfway through his rounds, checking on post-op patients, when a commotion erupted down the hall. A nurse's panicked voice crackled over the intercom.
Security to room 312. Now!
Aaron's pulse kicked up. He dropped the chart he was holding and jogged toward the room. Aaron rounded the corner just as 2 security guards rushed in. Inside, the scene was pure chaos. A middle-aged man, one of the neuropatients, was on the ground, tangled in IV lines, convulsing violently. His eyes were wild, unfocused, and his mouth foamed as he snarled like a rabid animal. A terrified nurse was pressed against the wall, her face pale.
Help me hold him down.
One of the guards shouted, struggling to pin the patient's flailing arms. Aaron didn't hesitate. He dropped to his knees, grabbing the patient's legs. The man was strong, far stronger than he should have been for someone bedridden just hours ago. His muscles locked up, his back arched unnaturally, and then, just as suddenly, his body went limp.
Shit.
Aaron muttered, feeling for a pulse. It was there, but thready. The patient's chest rose and fell in shallow, ragged breaths.
What the hell was that?
The nurse stammered, still against the wall. Aaron looked at her, then at the monitors flashing erratically. His gut told him this wasn't just another medical emergency. Something was wrong. And he had a bad feeling it was only the beginning. The room buzzed with nervous energy as a doctor pushed through the doorway, his lab coat flaring behind him.
What happened?
He demanded, eyes flicking from the patient to the staff. Aaron stepped back, catching his breath.
He seized up, fought like hell, then just crashed.
The doctor frowned, grabbing the patient's wrist.
Get a crash cart in here, now.
A nurse bolted down the hall. Aaron glanced at the monitors, heart rate erratic, oxygen levels dropping. The man's lips had a faint bluish tint. Whatever was happening, it wasn't normal. The patient twitched. Then his eyelids fluttered open. His pupils were fully dilated, swallowing the color of his irises. Aaron had seen that look before. Disoriented, primal, vacant. Then the man moved. It wasn't a slow, groggy wake-up. It was a violent lunge. He twisted off the bed, swinging wildly. One of the guards took a punch to the chest and stumbled back. The other tried to grab him, but the patient sank his teeth into the man's forearm with an audible crunch. The room exploded into action. The bitten guard screamed, jerking back, blood already seeping through his sleeve. The doctor yelled for sedation. The second guard wrestled with the patient, trying to restrain him. Aaron didn't think. He reacted. He grabbed a nearby sheet, wrapping it around the patient's arm like a tourniquet, yanking it tight to restrict movement. The man bucked against him, but Aaron used his weight, his old football instincts kicking in, and drove him down onto the bed. A nurse rushed in with a syringe.
Hold him!
Aaron gritted his teeth, locking the patient's thrashing body against the mattress as the nurse plunged the needle into his shoulder. It took seconds, but it felt like an eternity before the fight drained from his limbs. His head lolled to the side, breath rasping. The room settled into stunned silence, the only sound the beeping monitors and the guard groaning in pain. Aaron looked up, meeting the doctor's tense expression.
That wasn't a seizure,
Aaron said, his voice low. The doctor nodded grimly.
No, it wasn't.
Aaron's stomach twisted. Something was very wrong, and he had a bad feeling it was only the beginning. Aaron's pulse still raced as he released the now sedated patient's arm and pushed himself to his feet. The blood from the injured guard was splattered across his uniform, and his heart pounded with the knowledge that he might have just witnessed the early stages of something catastrophic. His eyes darted to the door, the path to the decontamination room just beyond it. Time was critical.
Call in a quarantine.
Aaron barked at the nurse nearest him.
Now!
The nurse hesitated but nodded, grabbing the phone. Aaron didn't wait. He moved toward the hallway, trying to shut the panic from his mind. He couldn't afford to think about what was happening yet. His first priority was getting out of there clean. He passed through the hall, shoulders tense, and stepped into the decontamination room. The walls were lined with emergency supplies, Wipes, sanitizers, disposable suits, gloves, face shields. Aaron slammed the door behind him and locked it, the sound of it clicking into place sharp in the sterile silence. He immediately began stripping off his soiled gear, pulling the blood-smeared gloves off his hands and tossing them in the biohazard bin. The smell of metal, sweat, and panic clung to him as he peeled off his shirt and pants. Not enough. He grabbed a sanitizing wipe from the counter and ran it over his forearms. It felt like it wasn't enough. He needed to do more. He needed to scrub it all away. Fumbling for the disinfectant spray, washing away the grime and fear. The cold stung his skin, but it helped clear his mind. The weight of the moment hadn't quite hit him yet. He was still moving on autopilot, a soldier trying to survive. He stepped out from the spray, his breathing still labored, and grabbed a fresh set of scrubs from the pile. As he dressed, his mind wandered back to the patient. Was it really the infection? He hadn't seen it firsthand yet, but what if the blood he'd touched was the start of something much worse? He pulled the clean gloves on, making sure they were secure. He'd learned early in his medical career that contamination didn't wait for anyone. It spread fast, and the longer you took to protect yourself, the worse it would get. The door to the decontamination room opened just as he finished adjusting his face shield. He stepped out, eyes scanning the hallway for any sign of the next thing that might go wrong. His instincts screamed at him to get out of the hospital, to retreat to the familiar safety of his home. But he knew better. People were depending on him now. The nurse who had called for the quarantine was standing by, a look of shock on her face.
Aaron, you need to see this.
He followed her to the nurse's station, his heart pounding again. Something wasn't right. Whatever was happening, it wasn't just some isolated incident. He could feel it in the air, that tension of something building, waiting to break free. One of the monitors by the desk was showing a security feed from the emergency room. A new patient had been wheeled in, a woman with a wild look in her eyes. She wasn't responding to questions, only thrashing against the restraints holding her to the gurney. Aaron's eyes narrowed. Her movements were jerky, almost unnatural.
What the hell happened to her?
He asked. The nurse glanced over at him, her voice barely a whisper.
She was fine earlier, but when she came in, she started changing, like something was taking over.
Aaron swallowed hard. Could it be the same thing? The infection was spreading faster than anyone could have predicted. The nurse's voice was shaky.
Aaron, I think it's happening.
His eyes stayed on the monitor as the woman on the gurney began to thrash harder, her face contorting in pain. The flesh around her eyes was starting to darken, and her pupils were dilated to an almost inhuman size. Aaron's shift had come to a close, but as he walked toward the break room to grab his things, his phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, the screen lighting up with a news alert that made his stomach drop.
New outbreak in the Midwest. Multiple reports of sudden violent behavior. Unidentified illness spreading quickly in rural areas. Hospitals overwhelmed. Authorities urging lockdowns.
The video clip that accompanied the alert showed footage of a hospital, chaos unfolding in the background. Infected patients, violent and disoriented, attacked staff, and other patients. The scene was disturbingly familiar, and Aaron's pulse quickened. It was happening. He stared at the screen, his mind spinning as the room seemed to close in around him. His hands tightened around the phone as his thoughts raced. Was this it? Was this the beginning of the nightmare? He shoved the phone back into his pocket and headed straight for the locker room. He couldn't stay here. Not anymore. His footsteps echoed in the sterile hallway, his eyes scanning the empty corridors. The hospital had been his sanctuary, but now it felt like a cage. He needed to get out. The door to the locker room swung open, and Aaron quickly changed, the familiar weight of his work clothes replaced by his street clothes. His mind was already far ahead, calculating what he needed to do next. He didn't have time to waste. As he exited the building, the cool air hit his face, a stark contrast to the suffocating tension inside. He didn't look back. The world was changing, and Aaron knew he had to be ready.
Tessa's alarm blared, dragging her from a restless sleep. She reached for her phone on the nightstand, squinting at the screen as it flickered to life in the early morning dim. The soft glow of the text caught her attention.
Good morning, babe. Hope your day's starting off right. I've already had my run. Just working at the office today. I'll check in later. Stay safe. I love you.
She smiled, a small but familiar warmth spreading through her. Aaron had been up and at it for hours already, while she was still working on her first cup of coffee. They had a rhythm, an unspoken connection, even in the quiet moments like this.
Good morning, love. You too.
She sent the reply, already thinking about the day ahead. The weight of everything happening out there in the world, was hard to ignore. But for now, the simple exchange felt like a tether to something solid. She needed that. Tessa climbed out of bed and stretched, the cool morning air brushing her skin as she moved through the motions of getting ready. She threw on a comfortable sweater and slacks, something practical for the school. Breakfast was quick, nothing fancy, a piece of toast and a cup of coffee. She threw her bag over her shoulder, grabbed her keys, and headed out. The car ride to the school was quiet, the streets still early and mostly empty. The world had felt quieter in the past couple of weeks. People had begun whispering more about the virus. What started in Canada had slowly started making its way south. But in her small town, there was still a false sense of normalcy. The school was open, and Tessa was here, ready to do her job. It was easy to pretend everything was fine. When she pulled into the parking lot, the usual hustle and bustle of teachers and staff was already in motion. She waved a quick hello to a few colleagues on her way inside. Tessa headed straight to her office, but the unease in the air was palpable. That morning's attendance had been strange. Several teachers and staff had called in sick, while others simply hadn't shown up at all. Their absences were marked in the logs, but no explanations had been given. More than a dozen staff members were missing, most of them older teachers and office workers. Tessa hadn't thought much of it at first, but now she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Tessa Klein's job was to hold things together. As the school's resource coordinator, she was the bridge between students, families, and the support systems meant to keep them afloat. Some days, that meant finding backpacks and winter coats for kids who didn't have them. Other days, it was calling CPS when a child showed up with bruises and excuses. But today, none of the usual problems seemed to matter. The school felt wrong. Too quiet in some places, too chaotic in others. More than a third of the student body was absent. Calls were pouring into the front office. Parents keeping their kids home, some sounding panicked, others indifferent. By mid-morning, she had a dozen emails flagged urgent. Parents asking if the school was still safe. A teacher reporting a first grader who had thrown up in the hallway, then collapsed. And then, the worst one, a staff-wide message from Principal Radford. If you witness any unusual student behavior, particularly sudden aggression, report it immediately. Do not attempt to handle the situation alone. Tessa exhaled slowly, pressing her fingers to her temples. That wasn't normal. She grabbed her phone and checked the news. Another town in Pennsylvania had shut down its schools indefinitely. Ohio officials were considering doing the same. Online, people screaming about a cover-up. Others saying it was just the flu, just hysteria. By mid-morning, Mrs. Hargrove, the the 70-year-old receptionist, had to be helped out of the front office. She'd been slurring her words, struggling to focus. At first, they thought it was a stroke, but when the paramedics arrived, they didn't seem sure. Mrs. Hargrove said she'd be fine. The others were just overreacting, and the medics left her to continue her work. Then Mr. Dennings, the janitor, collapsed near the cafeteria. He'd been working slower all morning, leaning on his mop like his legs barely held him up. When the nurse checked on him, he was burning up. Tessa wasn't the only one who noticed. Teachers whispered in the hallways. The principal looked more rattled than she'd ever seen him. She stepped into the main office to grab coffee, but the conversation there made her stomach tighten. Mrs. Patel, the reading specialist, wrapped her sweater tighter around herself.
I talked to my sister in Cleveland. Hospitals are packed, and no one's saying why.
Tessa pulled out her phone and scrolled the headlines again. More school closures in Pennsylvania. The Ohio Health Department was still downplaying concerns, but the comment sections were filled with rumors and fear. She clicked on a link to a video, a shaky camera from a grocery store in Indiana. The footage was grainy, but what stood out was the man stumbling down the aisle, his movements jerky and unnatural. He knocked over shelves, his body twitching like a puppet with its strings pulled too tight. Tessa's stomach twisted. It didn't make sense. It had to be a coincidence, right? Or something unrelated. But then the first scream echoed through the hallway, shattering the fragile calm of the day. Tessa jumped, her heart hammering. The scream was followed by muffled shouting, crashing noises, furniture being overturned, a sickening thud. Without thinking, she bolted toward the staff lounge. The scene inside was nothing like she could have expected. Mr. Calloway attacking Mrs. Patel. His hands were tightly gripping her shoulders, his body jerking unnaturally, as if controlled by something beyond his own will. Mrs. Patel was struggling, her back pressed against the coffee station as she screamed for help, trying to shove him off, but his grip was unrelenting. Tessa froze for a split second, her mind trying to process what was happening. At first, it looked like a seizure or some kind of medical emergency, but then she saw his mouth. His jaw was wide open, snapping, his teeth, blood-stained, gnashed down on Mrs. Patel's forearm, tearing through her flesh in sickening rips.
Help!
Someone yelled from behind her, snapping Tessa out of her shock. She didn't think. Grabbing a nearby chair, she swung it down onto Mr. Calloway's back with all her strength. The impact barely fazed him. He grunted, but it didn't stop him from continuing his attack. His eyes were wild, vacant, and full of rage. Tessa's pulse raced as she desperately looked for a way to help Mrs. Patel. The room seemed to spin, a surreal, disorienting blur of chaos. Then, through the haze, the school resource officer, Officer Ward, appeared in the doorway. "Back up!" he barked, his voice sharp. Mr. Calloway didn't seem to acknowledge the command. His head snapped toward Ward with a growl that didn't sound human. His body twisted with unnatural speed and strength as he lunged at the officer, knocking the gun from his hands. They both crashed into a table, papers and coffee cups flying everywhere. Ward scrambled to regain control of his weapon. But Mr. Calloway was relentless. Tessa's heart pounded in her chest as she dragged Mrs. Patel toward the door, not daring to look back.
God damn it!
Officer Ward muttered, struggling to push Calloway off him. Then he fired. The first shot hit Mr. Calloway in the center of his chest, but the man didn't stop. He staggered for a moment, but then lunged again, his mouth wide open, snapping for Ward's throat. Tessa's breath caught in her throat as the officer fired again. 3 shots, then 4. But it wasn't enough to stop the man. Each shot slowed him down, but he kept coming, a grotesque thing of rage. Tessa pulled Mrs. Patel toward the exit, her eyes wide with fear, but her mind racing with one thought.
I have to get out of here.
The final shot echoed through the room. A loud, definitive crack as Ward's bullet hit Mr. Calloway square in the forehead. The force of it sent Calloway's body dropping to the floor, like someone had turned off a light switch. Tessa felt her stomach drop as the silence rushed in. Ward stood there, chest heaving, his gun still raised, his uniform covered in blood. His voice was ragged as he ordered,
"Everybody out now."
The moment the first gunshot echoed through the school, everything changed. The chaos in the hallway halted, replaced by a sharp, suffocating silence. Then the lockdown alarm blared, a shrill mechanical scream. Automated messages crackled over the PA system, urging staff and students to remain in their classrooms, doors locked, lights off. Tessa barely registered it. She had to leave. She bolted toward her office, weaving through the deserted halls as doors slammed shut around her. The protocol was clear. Stay put. Wait for authorities. But Tessa knew better. She had just seen what it took to stop Mr. Calloway. This wasn't something the police could contain. Her hands shook as she grabbed her keys, phone, and the emergency bag she always kept under her desk. She barely had time to breathe before her phone buzzed. Aaron.
Tessa, you okay?
His voice was tense but controlled.
I need to get to you.
She said, her breath coming fast.
It's bad here. This isn't normal. People are sick. They're attacking each other.
Aaron didn't hesitate.
Get to the house. Now don't stop. Don't talk to anyone. Just get here. Tess.
His voice sharpened, cutting through her panic.
Move! Now!
She swallowed hard and nodded, even though he couldn't see her.
I'm on my way.
Hanging up, she stuffed the phone into her pocket and edged toward the nearest exit. The hall was eerily still. A few stray papers littered the floor, evidence of the earlier frenzy. But the only sound was the faint, tinny echo of the lockdown announcement on repeat. Most of the school was following protocol, locked in, waiting. But Tessa couldn't afford to wait. She pressed herself against the wall, listening. Nothing. Then, footsteps. Slow. Dragging. Her pulse thundered in her ears. She peered around the corner. Down the hall, just past the main office, a figure stood in the dim emergency lighting. Mrs. Hargrove, or at least, what used to be her. The elderly receptionist's once kind face was slack, her jaw slightly open, as if she were mumbling to herself. Her blouse was stained, darkened in places with something wet. Her arms hung limp at her sides, until her head jerked up, and her glazed, unfocused eyes landed on Tessa. Tessa's breath caught. Mrs. Hargrove moved, not a shuffle, not a stumble. She lurched, almost a flat run. Well for a run for a 71-year-old woman. Tessa didn't think. She ran. She sprinted toward the side exit, her heart hammering as she fumbled for her keycard. The buzzing intercom, the distant wails of sirens outside, the blood pounding in her ears, it all blurred into one chaotic symphony. The scanner took an agonizing second to read her card. Then, click. She yanked the door open and slipped outside, sucking in the cold air like she'd been drowning. No turning back now. Tessa sprinted to her car, ignoring the muffled sounds of distant screams inside the building. The world was falling apart, and she needed to get to Aaron before it was too late.
Tessa's hands were still shaking as she gripped the wheel, knuckles white against the leather. The school was behind her, but that didn't mean she was safe, not even close. Flashing lights filled her rearview mirror. Police cruisers and a black SWAT van sped past in the opposite lane, heading toward the school. The situation was escalating fast. Ohio State Highway Patrol had already begun setting up roadblocks. She saw the first one half a mile down the road and instinctively swerved onto a side street before they could flag her down. She couldn't afford to get stopped. Not now. She reached over with her right hand, yanked open the glove compartment, and felt the familiar grip of the Smith & Wesson M and P 9mm Aaron had given her last Christmas. She wasn't much of a gun person before, but Aaron insisted she learn.
Better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it,
he had said. Well, she needed it now. Tessa kept one hand on the wheel and checked the magazine. Fully loaded. She checked the slide and placed it on the passenger seat, her heart pounding. The drive to Aaron's should have taken 20 minutes, but every turn felt like another obstacle. She wove through back roads and quiet neighborhoods, avoiding main streets where the police were setting up. The emergency alerts on her phone kept buzzing, broadcasts warning residents to remain indoors due to violent civil unrest. They still weren't calling it what it really was. As she turned onto a narrow stretch of road near Maplewood Retirement Community, she spotted movement ahead. At first, she thought it was just people wandering in the street, confused elderly residents maybe, but then she saw the way they moved. Jolting, twitching, mouths hanging open, smeared with something dark. Her stomach twisted. 6 or 7 of them stood in the middle of the road, blocking her path. Another few were stumbling around outside the retirement home, some leaning against cars, others banging their heads against the building's glass entrance doors. One of them, a frail old man in pajamas, looked directly at her, like his blackened eyes burnt through to her soul. He broke into a sprint. Tessa barely had time to react. The frail, elderly man shouldn't have been able to move like that. His slippered feet slapped against the pavement as he charged toward her, arms outstretched, fingers curled into claws.
Jesus! Jesus, save me!
She gasped, slamming her foot on the brake. The old man lunged at her hood with unnatural strength, his thin body smacking against the metal. His face was contorted, eyes milky, mouth stretched too wide, teeth dark with blood. He pounded his fists against the windshield, his nails scraping at the glass. And he wasn't alone. Before she could react, a face lunged through the open gap in her driver's side window. Sunken, milky eyes, rotting teeth, bared in a bloody snarl. The infested had somehow latched onto her car, using the side mirror, or what was left of it, to pull itself up. Now, half its body was inside her car, snarling, snapping at her throat. Tessa screamed and jerked away, her shoulder slamming into the door. The thing's breath was rancid, a mixture of blood, rot, and something sickly sweet, like spoiled meat left in the sun. It lunged, teeth inches from her face. Tessa didn't think. Her right hand shot to the passenger seat, fingers wrapping around the grip of the Smith & Wesson. She whipped the gun up, jamming the muzzle into its gaping mouth. Boom! 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 The gunshots roared through the car, deafening in the small space, blowing the infested back out of the window as the carnage spilled down the side of the car, onto the pavement. The others in the street turned toward her all at once, like puppets pulled by the same string. Their movements were jerky, off balance, but they were fast. Too fast. Tessa's breath caught in her throat. She had seconds to decide. Sit here and get swarmed, or floor it. She floored it. The engine roared as she slammed the gas, plowing forward. The old man on the hood let out a dry, wheezing shriek as he tumbled beneath the tires with a sickening crunch. The car jolted, but she didn't stop. The others reacted instantly, lunging at her car from both sides. One of them, a woman in a bloody nightgown, clawed at her driver's side window, her fingernails snapping as she pounded at the glass. Another. A man in a security guard's uniform grabbed at the passenger side mirror, yanking it clean off. Tessa gritted her teeth.
Get the hell off me.
She jerked the wheel hard to the left, sending the car into a wide skid. The woman in the nightgown lost her grip and spun off, hitting the pavement face first. The security guard held on a second longer, but when Tessa swung back to the right, he was flung into the ditch. Her tires screeched as she straightened out, speeding away from the swarm. She checked her rearview mirror. More were coming from the parking lot, from the glass doors, now shattered, from the open windows on the second floor, where dark figures were climbing out and dropping onto the pavement below. Maplewood was lost. Tessa's heart pounded as she gunned it down the road, gripping the wheel so tight her fingers ached. This wasn't just a handful of isolated cases. This was an outbreak, and it was moving fast. Tessa slammed the gas pedal down, speeding away from the retirement home, the dead thing's blood still speckled on her arm. She grabbed her phone with one hand, hit Aaron's number, and barely had time to take a breath before. One ring.
Aaron.
He was there, standing by, ready.
I know,
he said immediately, his voice tense but steady.
Where are you?
Close. Maybe 10 minutes.
She gulped.
It's bad. The retirement home? It's swarming. They're everywhere.
Aaron was already in motion, the sound of rustling gear in the background. He had grabbed his kit the moment she left work that morning, after what he had saw at the hospital the previous night, instinct screaming at him that something was off. Now he was locking it down. He had already loaded the truck with essentials, ammo, medkit, extra fuel. If he had to go get her, he would.
We're locking down,
Aaron told her.
But you're my priority, Tessa. I'm not leaving without you.
I'm almost there,
Tessa replied, her grip tightening on the wheel. The world outside her windows felt like it was slowly crumbling, but she focused on the road ahead.
I know. Just keep moving. Don't stop for anything. I just heard on the radio and TV. The National Guard is mobilizing. The situation's getting worse. Fast.
Tessa's stomach turned as she glanced around. The sound of distant sirens echoed, mixing with the occasional crash of gunfire. The roads were starting to feel more like a war zone.
I'm ready,
she said, though the truth was, she wasn't sure anyone was. The next 10 minutes felt like an eternity, every second stretching as she drove through the increasingly chaotic town. People were panicking now, running in every direction, some with bags of belongings, others shouting for loved ones. Tessa pushed forward, her headlights catching more infested figures stumbling along the sidewalks, pulling at whatever was left of their humanity. They were everywhere. It was impossible to pretend this was just some isolated incident anymore. The world had shifted, irrevocably. Her phone buzzed again.
You're close,
Aaron said.
Where are you at?
Just hit the edge of town,
she answered. Her voice was a little strained now, the fear starting to seep in despite her resolve.
I'm almost there, I promise,
she said. Aaron's tone softened.
I know you are, baby. Just hang on a little longer. We're almost there.
Her hands were starting to cramp around the wheel, but she didn't dare stop to stretch. She couldn't afford it. She had to keep going. For Aaron, for herself, her daughters, and for everyone else who might still have a chance if they could just hold on long enough. The house was quiet for now, but the stillness was a thin veil. Aaron stood at the front door, watching through the window. Odin sitting by his side, on guard, sensing the urgency in the air. His senses picking up the threats to come. Aaron, his mind raced through contingency plans, preparing for what was coming, but also bracing for the unknown. His team wouldn't arrive for another day or two. They had families to secure, people to look after. They'd made it clear they wouldn't leave their own behind, and Aaron understood that, but it also left him alone, standing guard. Tessa arrived sooner than he expected. He saw her car screeching down the driveway, the headlights catching the faded edges of the boarded-up windows. She barely slowed down before jumping out, her face grim but determined. Tessa's heart was still pounding as she stepped out of the car, her eyes scanning the small house. But before she could even take a breath of relief, Aaron was there, standing in front of her, his expression unreadable. His movements were sharp, deliberate. He was wearing latex gloves, a surgical mask, and had a flashlight in hand, held tight and ready.
Whoa, Aaron, what's going on?
Tessa stammered, her confusion evident. She hadn't seen him like this before, especially not since the outbreak. His eyes, intense and focused, met hers, but they held a hardness that made her stomach tighten.
I can't take any chances,
Aaron replied in a low, steady tone.
We need to be thorough. This isn't just about us anymore, Tessa.
Tessa swallowed, her throat dry. She wanted to protest, to ask questions, but she could feel the urgency in his words, in the way he was moving. He was preparing, and that was all she needed to understand. She nodded wordlessly as he gestured toward the front porch. As she stepped outside, the crisp air hit her like a slap in the face, snapping her out of the fog of panic that had settled over her. Aaron stood next to her, his eyes scanning her face, pupils widening and narrowing under the light of his flashlight. She couldn't help but feel an odd mix of vulnerability and gratitude as he took the small step to examine her without hesitation.
Odin?
Aaron murmured, and the dog, his ever-loyal companion, trotted over, tail wagging furiously. The dog sniffed at Tessa with his nose, as if to reassure her that she was safe. Tessa bent down instinctively, reaching out to pet him, and in that moment, a sense of calm washed over her. Odin was always a good indicator. Aaron's steady hand on the dog's back was a quiet signal that he trusted his reaction above all. Aaron's eyes flickered between Odin and Tessa, and he looked satisfied with what he saw. The dog, always attuned to the slightest change in atmosphere, was calm and affectionate, clearly not sensing any danger in Tessa. She wasn't infected. At least that's what Aaron hoped, but he wasn't taking any chances.
Your pupils are good,
Aaron said, voice low and controlled as he switched the flashlight off.
That's the first check.
Tessa watched him with a mix of surprise and concern, but she knew better than to question him now. This was his way of protecting both of them.
Okay, let's get you scrubbed down,
he added, his tone shifting slightly, still urgent, but softer now that she was passing the first tests. He guided her into the house, leading her toward the small utility room where he had set up the decontamination station. The smell of bleach and disinfectant hit her as soon as she entered, and her nose wrinkled at the sharp scent. She was about to ask him something when he stopped her with a look. He handed her a large plastic bag to discard her outer clothing into.
We'll burn these later.
Tessa, still processing everything, slowly began to undress, the weight of the world settling onto her shoulders again. There was no time to dwell on the horrors she'd just witnessed. She was alive, and right now that was all that mattered. Aaron mixed the bleach solution as he prepared to scrub her down, his movements precise. He kept his eyes on her the entire time, wiping her skin down with rough motions, making sure no trace of the outside world remained on her.
Don't flinch,
he warned, soaking a cloth in the bleach mixture and applying it to her arms.
We've got to be sure. I can't risk it.
Tessa held still, biting her lip to keep from reacting to the sting of the disinfectant. She didn't need to look at Aaron to know how serious he was. Once she was thoroughly scrubbed, Aaron moved on the next step. Aaron handed her some fresh, clean clothes from the ones she kept at his house. Tessa took the clothes, her eyes lingering on him for a second longer than usual. She knew Aaron wasn't doing this out of coldness. He was doing it because he cared, because he couldn't afford to lose her, and most importantly, she could see it in his eyes. He loved her. She quickly dressed, her mind racing as she thought of everything that had just happened. The infested, the panic, the world tearing apart. She could feel the weight of it on her shoulders as she put on the fresh clothes. Tessa was surprised how much thought he had already put into all this.
How did he know? What did he know? What had he figured out?
She had so many questions. Her best guess was the hospital. Things he has seen, heard, or read there over the last couple of weeks. Erin had a blood glucose kit laying out, the lancets ready to prick her finger, a quick stick to her index finger, a drop of blood. He carefully took a UV flashlight from the counter, clicking it on with a soft click. The cool blue light illuminated the room as he directed it toward the small cloth he had prepared for the blood smear test. Tessa stood still, her breath shallow, her mind racing. She felt like she was caught in a whirlwind of fear and urgency, yet there was a small part of her that trusted Erin completely.
Just a quick check,
he murmured, guiding the flashlight over the small smear of blood he had carefully taken from her earlier. The UV light would reveal any abnormal characteristics, anything that could indicate infection. The seconds stretched out, tension thick in the air. Erin's brow furrowed slightly as the light passed over the smear, his eyes scanning for any sign of change. Tessa stood there, holding her breath, her heart pounding in her chest. She watched Erin's face closely, waiting for any sign, any indication that something was wrong. Finally, Erin let out a quiet breath and turned off the UV flashlight, removed his mask and gloves, tossing them into a yellow trash bag next to the table.
You're good. No infection, no parasites. We've got to be ready,
Erin said, his voice low and resolute.
The team's coming. We'll hold out until they get here, but we stay sharp. This is only the beginning.
Tessa nodded, her own fear tempered by the focus Aaron had instilled in her. She was ready. Tessa's arrival marked the first step in the plan to survive. Now, it was time to prepare for what came next. Erin quickly helped her set up in a corner of the living room where she could catch her breath, check her gear, and organize.
Where is the team?
She asked, finally getting a chance to speak, the exhaustion settling in. Erin's face tightened.
They're coming. They'll be here in a day or two, maybe a little longer. One of the guys is bunkering in, which is cool. He's only 5 minutes away anyway. He's securing his place and family. They've got families to protect, too.
His voice was quieter now, the weight of responsibility heavy.
But they'll be here when they can.
Tessa nodded, her gaze flicking to the boarded-up windows.
We can't wait too long. The infested, they're getting more aggressive. The National Guard's moving in, but I don't know how much longer that's going to last.
I know,
Erin muttered, his voice tight with frustration.
But we can't make any moves until we've got the team.
They exchanged a look. The next 48 hours or longer were going to be critical. But for now, it was just the two of them. And they had to hold the line, because when the rest of Erin's team showed up, they wouldn't have the luxury of waiting anymore. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The house was a shadowed shell, lit only by the flickering glow of a battery-powered lantern. Light at night was a gamble. Could draw the wrong kind of attention, healthy or infested. The dining table lay buried under supplies, ammo cans pried open, medical kits spilling their guts, and a spiral notebook where Erin had scratched out lists in tight, deliberate lines. Food, water, ammunition, medical gear, fuel, power, sanitation, everything tallied, what he had and what he needed. In the basement, Erin sat on an overturned ammo can, running a calloused finger down the notebook's latest page. Metal shelves lined the walls, heavy with canned goods, water jugs, ammo boxes, and bandages. A stockpile built to carry one person through a year. But Tessa was here now, and that sliced his timeline in half. Food was the choke point, already dwindling. Water held steady, thanks to rain barrels out back. Ammo was plentiful. Medical supplies teetered. Antibiotics and wound care wouldn't last. He clicked his pen twice, the sound sharp in the stillness, and scrawled a final note. Priority, expand stockpile. Soon. Upstairs, Tessa slumped on the couch, phone casting a pale glow across her face as she scrolled through a social media feed gone feral. Videos of burning houses flashed by, shaky footage of people clawing at each other in gas stations and parking lots. Posts begged for help. Others screamed to run while there was still time. Aaron glanced up from his notebook.
How's it looking out there?
She didn't answer right away, her eyes locked on the screen. Then she turned it toward him. The video showed a man stumbling outside a bar, blood streaking his chest, a chunk of his arm missing. A voice behind the camera whispered, panicked, "He won't go down." Oh my God, he won't go down. The screen went dark. Aaron exhaled, a slow release of tension.
That's what I figured.
Tessa locked the phone and pressed her fingers to her temples.
It's spreading too fast.
And it's not slowing,
Aaron said, tapping the notebook.
We've got a window before people realize this isn't just riots. Then it's chaos.
He leaned forward, voice steady but edged.
Food's short. I had a year for one, 6 months with you. Supply runs tomorrow. Dollar General first, hardware store if we're lucky. Security's locking down. Front doors screwed shut, plus got the reinforced deadbolt. I'll finish boarding up the back tonight. Windows boarded and are solid, but keep the curtains drawn. Unknown knock, you don't answer. Noise at night, wake me. Run scenarios in your head now. React, don't think.
Tessa swallowed hard but nodded, her jaw tight. She was in it now. No turning back.
Good.
Aaron slid a scrap of paper across the table.
Start calling. Emily first, then Sarah. They answer. Tell them to get here. After that, dig through social media. People post their last moments. Might give us an edge.
She met his gaze, her voice low.
You think the network's dropping soon?
Yeah,
he said, jaw clenching.
Power first, then internet, then cell towers. Days, maybe less.
She didn't argue. She grabbed her phone and started dialing. Aaron followed suit, thumbing his own screen until the line crackled to life.
Yo, Romeo,
came the brash, familiar voice of Mike Boogout Russo. 6 feet of lean muscle, a veteran turned contractor with a beard like a wild Viking, and the burnout energy to match.
You finally calling to say you proposed to that girl?
Not quite, dumbass,
Aaron shot back.
Need a sit rep. How's Florida?
Hot,
Bugout said.
Old folks shuffling slower than you. Shit's bad, bro. Can't even find a Publix still slinging pub subs. Didn't think zombies would kill sandwiches before gas pumps. You?
Ohio's unraveling,
Aaron said.
Tessa saw the school cops shoot a teacher clawing at another one. Parasites hit there too. Cops are jumpy. Drove earlier. Saw weird shit. Blank stares, twitching, like the parasites wrestling the host for control. You and Sven still checking on my dad?
A deeper voice cut in, steady and resonant. John Sven Christensen, ex-Marine, 6 feet 7 inches of blonde, broad-shouldered Viking grit. His early 50s carved into a face that didn't flinch.
Yeah, man. Shady Pines tomorrow. No promises past that.
Understood,
Aaron said.
Here's what I've got. Infested keep human eyes. No dark vision. Hearing and smell are sharp. Maybe the parasite's boosting them. Maybe it's just no inhibitions.
So if I crop dust a room, they'll sniff me out first?
Bugout cut in, grinning through the phone.
Jesus, Bugout,
Aaron muttered.
Ignore him.
Sven said, voice like gravel.
Go on. They're fast once the parasite's fully in.
Aaron continued.
Before that, they hesitate. Reflexes still work. I've seen it in the hospital while at work. Pupil response fades late stage. Decon's critical. Gloves, no blood contact. Get it in a cut, it's over.
So don't get bit.
Bugout said.
Genius, bro.
Eat shit, Mike.
Testing how?
Sven asked, cutting through the noise.
Pupil dilatation reflex checks. Blood pricks with a glucose kit.
Aaron said.
Odin's backup. If he barks, they're gone.
Bugout laughed.
So your dog is the judge and jury now?
Swear to God, Bug, if you die Dutch ovening a zombie, I won't miss you.
Sven chuckled, a rare crack in his stone facade.
Focus, what else?
Decon SOP,
Aaron said.
Gloves for blood, avoid close splatter. If I'm hit, strip, scrub, burn the clothes. Exposed teammate, cut, blood in the mouth. Eyes, we isolate, test, confirm.
Full hazmat MOP 4 now?
Bugout asked.
Not yet, but I'm not dying sloppy. Smart,
Sven said.
We'll scrounge med supplies here. How bad's your end?
Bad enough. Infested neighbors. Heading out tonight to deal with it.
Hands dirty, huh?
Bugout said.
Plan?
Tomahawk and NVGs. Quick, quiet, controlled. No noise if I can help it.
Caveman shit, brother.
Fire's the purifier,
Aaron said.
They're down, house burns. No nest next door.
This a theme now?
Sven asked.
Nothing reanimates. No threat remains.
Scorched earth, literal edition,
Bugout said.
Better safe than sorry,
Aaron replied.
Be careful,
Sven said.
We'll check your dad. Keep you posted.
If you die, can I have your gun collection?
Bugout added.
If I die, you won't last long enough to take it.
Fair. Stay frosty, killer.
The call ended with a click. Aaron exhaled, the weight of it settling in his chest. Tessa watched him, phone in one hand, the other tightening Odin's collar.
Emily's dodging me like a pro.
She said.
Of course she is. Sarah?
She shook her head.
Nothing. Radio silence.
Aaron's jaw tightened, a flicker of worry he shoved down.
We'll sort that later. Right now I've got work.
Tessa hesitated, then slid a spare flashlight across the table.
Just come back.
He grabbed his gear, gloves, sidearm, tomahawk, NVGs, flashlight, and felt the familiar heft settle over him. Time to go to work. Aaron stepped out onto the back porch, the night air cool and heavy with silence. He didn't want Tessa hearing this one, not yet. The phone felt like a brick in his hand as he dialed, the line picking up after 2 rings.
Fireball,
came the voice of Clint Foster, call sign earned from a reckless streak and a love for whiskey and anything that went boom. An athletic guy, local, just a country mile over, with a suppressed AR thermal scope and NVGs that made him a ghost in the dark.
Clint,
Aaron said, voice low and tight.
You free tonight?
Depends.
Fireball replied, a Kentucky drawl curling through his tone.
What's the play?
Infested neighbors. Hitting them with a tomahawk, NVGs, quiet as I can. Need overwatch. Your AR and thermal. You in?
A beat of silence, then a low chuckle.
Yeah, I'm in. Been itching to test this scope on something that ain't deer. When and where?
Corner up the road from my place. 2,300 hours. Keep it dark. Keep it quiet.
Roger that. See you there, Chief.
The call cut off. Aaron pocketed the phone and slipped back inside, gears turning. Hours later, the corner of that country back road was a black void, street lights long dead. Aaron crouched behind a rusted mailbox, NVG's painting the world in eerie green. The air hung thick with smoke and rot, chaos echoing in the distance, screams, a stray gunshot. His tomahawk rested heavy at his side, gloves snug, flashlight stashed. He checked his watch, 22:58, 2 minutes out. A shadow shifted across the road, silent as a wraith. Clint Fireball Foster melted into view, athletic frame hunched under a suppressed AR-15 thermal scope glinting faintly. That call sign wasn't just for show. Whiskey fueled his fire, and a reckless streak had landed him in more bar fights than jail cells, though he'd tasted both. A local, just a country mile over, he was the kind of guy you wanted on your six when hell broke loose.
Chief,
Fireball whispered, voice low with a Kentucky twang. He dropped to a knee beside Aaron, sweeping the block through his scope.
Right on time.
Always am,
Aaron said, tone clipped.
You ready?
Born ready. What's the play?
Aaron nodded down the road toward a cluster of houses.
2 targets, infested neighbors. 3, maybe 4, holed up in the Blue Ranch. Quick and quiet, tomahawk takes them down. Fire cleans it up.
Fireball grunted.
And the second?
The problem house.
Aaron's voice turned to steel.
End of the lane, that shithole with the busted porch. Felon scumbags, druggies, thieves. Been watching them for weeks. Tweaked out, armed, too damn close. Chaos is here. There'll be trouble later if we don't end it now.
Fireball lowered the scope, a faint smirk tugging at his lips.
Cleaning house, huh? Infested and assholes in one go. Ballsy.
Necessary,
Aaron said.
Cops were rare out here, even when things were good. Now they're gone. Law's dead. We don't act. They'll come for us when the food's scarce. You're on Overwatch. Thermal picks them out. AR drops anything moving too fast. I'll handle the close work.
Roger that.
Fireball adjusted his grip, eyes glinting with a spark of thrill.
How many in the problem house?
5 last count. Could be more. Could be infested too. Don't care. They're done either way.
Fireball nodded, the smirk fading into something colder.
Works for me. Lead on, Chief.
Aaron rose, tomahawk in hand, and slipped into the darkness, Fireball trailing like a shadow. The night was young, and the work was dirty, but it had to be done. The night draped the country back road in a black shroud, the air thick with rot and gasoline. Aaron moved like a specter, NVGs casting the world in a ghostly green glow, tomahawk tight in his gloved hand. Hours earlier, he'd linked up with Clint Fireball Foster at the corner up the road. 2,300 hours, dark and quiet, just as planned. Fireball, a shadow with a suppressed AR-15 and thermal scope, trailed a dozen yards back now, sweeping the darkness. The plan was simple. Hit the infested neighbors, then the problem house. Quick, quiet, controlled. Scavenge what they could, burn the rest. Chaos, though, didn't care about plans. The Blue Ranch loomed ahead, windows dark, a faint shuffle echoing within. Aaron crept to the side door, Fireball posting up across the street, rifle steady. A nod, and Aaron slipped in. The NVGs proved their worth. 3 infested lurched in the living room, human eyes blind in the dark, twitching like broken puppets. The tomahawk cleaved the first skull with a wet crunch, dropped the second before it turned, and sank into the third's neck as it lunged. Blood sprayed, black in the green haze, but the gloves held. A fourth staggered from the kitchen, jaws snapping, one swing, and it crumpled. His unsuppressed Glock 19 stayed holstered at his hip. He wasn't risking the noise, not yet. One loud shot could make bad go to worse. Supplies first. Aaron swept the kitchen, canned beans, half-empty ramen, a jug of water under the sink, stuffing them into a trash bag. The bathroom yielded peroxide, gauze, a few painkillers, not much, but every scrap counted. Back in the living room, he dragged the bodies to the center, doused them with kerosene from the shed, and struck a match. Flames roared up, licking the walls. 4 down, no noise, no fuss. The NVG edge was gold. He slipped out as the fire took hold, bag over his shoulder, signaling Fireball with a low whistle. 1 down. The problem house waited. End of the lane, a sagging shithole with a busted porch and a rusted pickup out front. This wasn't just infested. This was human trouble. 5 felon scumbags who'd plagued decent folks for years. Aaron had watched them siphoning gas, stripping copper, peddling meth, or anything they could snort or smoke. Petty nuisances, except for their leader, Dwayne D-Boy Hicks, a 5-time loser who gave good rednecks a bad name. Breaking and entering, assault, domestic violence, armed robbery. D-Boy liked hurting people just because. Dumb as dirt, mean as hell. Fireball crouched beside him behind a rotted fence, thermal picking up 5 heat signatures inside.
Looks lively,
he whispered, Kentucky twang thick with anticipation.
How you want to play it?
Same as before,
Aaron said, voice low and hard.
I go in quiet, tomahawk first. You drop anything that bolts or fights back. They're armed, shotguns, maybe a pistol. Watch the windows. No sidearm unless it's dire. Unsuppressed will wake the whole damn county.
Roger that, Chief.
Fireball's smirk gleamed.
Let's give him a bad night.
Aaron slipped forward, NVGs on. The house a green blur of peeling paint and broken glass. The front door hung ajar. Idiots didn't lock it. He eased inside, the stench of meth and filth hitting like a fist. Voices slurred from the living room, a mix of paranoia and bravado.
Swear I heard something, D-boy,
whined Skeeter, a scrawny tweaker with a rap sheet of petty theft and a habit of folding fast.
Shut your trap,
D-Boy snarled, drawl thick and ugly. Big, 6 feet, 2 inches of flab and muscle, he sprawled on a stained couch, sawed-off shotgun across his lap. Prison tattoo snaked up his arms, sloppy, faded. He'd beaten his ex bloody for burning his dinner, bragged about it. Bubba slumped in a folding chair, a doughy lump with a patchy beard and a gas station cap, clutching a rusty hunting knife. Copper thief, dumb enough to smile at surveillance cameras.
Maybe it's them thing,
he mumbled, eyes darting.
Heard they're fast.
Fast don't mean shit if you shoot 'em,
piped up Jinx, a wiry girl with meth-rotted teeth and a wild giggle, twirling a switchblade. She'd torched a shed once, high as hell, just to watch it burn. Tater leaned against the wall, sucking on a vape pen, A38 revolver tucked in his waistband. Short, squat, buzz cut, gas theft, and drunk disorderly were his game, siphoning tanks like it was a job.
Y'all are paranoid,
he grunted.
Ain't nothing out there.
Aaron didn't wait. The tomahawk sang, burying itself in Bubba's chest. A gurgle, a thud. He was down. Jinx screamed, lunging with the switchblade, but Aaron sidestepped, wrenching the tomahawk free and cracking her skull with the flat. She dropped, twitching. Skeeter bolted for the back, shrieking, only to catch Fireball's suppressed round through the window. Headshot. Clean. Tater fumbled the 38th, firing wild, the bullet punching the wall. Aaron closed in, tomahawk arcing down, splitting Tater's shoulder to sternum. He crumpled, vape clattering. The Glock stayed holstered. Noise was the enemy. D-Boy roared, struggling to haul his fat ass off the couch, swinging the shotgun up, but the dark was Aaron's edge. He dove low, rolled, and came up swinging. The tomahawk slammed into D-Boy's crotch, a savage strike that shredded any manhood he'd had. D-Boy howled, collapsing, shotgun clattering away as he clutched himself, blood soaking his jeans. Aaron yanked a zip tie from his pocket, wrestled D-Boy's meaty hands behind his back, and cinched it tight. The big man thrashed, cursing, but he wasn't going anywhere. Aaron pulled his knife, pressing it to D-Boy's chest, carving slow, jagged lines, a map of every grudge he'd nursed. D-Boy screamed, then whimpered, blood welling.
Clear,
Aaron called softly over the radio mic. Fireball slipped off to scavenge, leaving Aaron alone with his work. He leaned close, voice ice.
You and yours have been a plague on us good folks for years. That shit stops now.
He paused, knife digging deeper.
Now, it's payback.
Fireball stepped out of the bedroom, arms loaded with loot, just as Aaron drew the blade across D-Boy's throat in a deep final slash. Blood spurted, pooling fast, D-Boy's eyes dimming as the life drained out. Fireball froze, staring.
Jesus, dude.
He rasped, Kentucky twang thick with shock.
This shit was personal, huh?
Aaron wiped the knife on D-Boy's shirt, unzipped his pants, and pissed on the corpse, breath steady.
Been a long time coming. There's more where these came from. Crawling all over out here. If they're infested by now, don't matter. They're next.
Fireball shook his head, dumping the haul on the floor.
Kitchen's got rice, jerky, a can of soup. Bedroom had meth, pills, a half bottle of Jack. Mine now. Found shotgun shells and a tire iron under the mattress. Bathroom's got bandages, antibiotic cream, some weed.
Aaron nodded.
Pile it on the porch. We're burning this shithole.
They hauled the grim treasure outside. Food, drugs, ammo, tools. Then Aaron doused the bodies with gas from the pickup's tank and struck a match. Flames leapt up, hungry and wild.
Let's go,
he said, grabbing the bag. The night turned feral. A crash split the air. The Blue Ranch, glass shattering, flames roaring higher. Shadows lurched in the firelight. More than 4, infested, spilling out, drawn by Tater's wild shot. Screams erupted, not just from the ranch. Other houses now, doors banging open. The block was waking up, and it was pissed. Fireball's voice crackled in Aaron's earpiece.
Chief, thermal's lighting up. Dozen at least, closing fast.
Aaron pulled his tomahawk free, blood dripping black in the green haze, loot slung over his shoulder. His mind chewed him out. Should have brought the suppressed AR Glocks. Unsuppressed. Too loud. Too risky. Noise'll make this shit show even worse.
Bridge,
he said, voice hard.
400 yards east, 1 lane. We bottleneck them there.
Thermopylae, huh?
Fireball said, melting out of the shadows, AR-15 raised, thermal scope glinting. He moved with a hunter's grace, whiskey-fueled fire in his eyes.
I like it. Let's haul ass.
Yeah, Thermopylae.
Aaron shot back, grim as hell.
But the Spartans all died. We can't.
They sprinted down the road, boots pounding asphalt, the infested snapping to their heels. The horde followed, 6, 8, 10 now, grunting and howling, drawn by the noise and blood. More spilled from nearby shacks, some fast, parasite in full control, others lagging, still fighting it. The bridge came into view, a narrow, 1-lane span over a dry creek, rusted railings barely holding. Perfect. Aaron hit the far side, dropping the bags behind a concrete piling. Fireball slid in beside him, kneeling, scope up.
Lead group's 30 yards out, he said. Fast ones first.
Drop 'em,
Aaron said, tomahawk ready, frustration simmering.
Glock's no good here. Too damn loud. Should have had the AR.
The AR coughed, thwip, 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 and 3 heads snapped back, bodies crumpling mid-stride. The bottleneck worked. The infested piled into the bridge's mouth, clawing over each other. No room to flank. Fireball's rifle sang, thwip, thwip, thwip. 5 down, 6, 7. Bodies stacked up, slowing the rest.
10 down,
he called.
Mag's getting light.
Aaron charged in, NVGs locking on a hulking figure in a torn jacket. Ex-farmhand, now a drooling freak. The tomahawk split its skull, dropped it. Another lunged, a skinny kid with clawing hands. He sidestepped, buried the blade in its neck, yanked it free. The pile grew. 8, 9, 10. Could have thinned him faster with the AR, he thought. Pissed at himself. Fireball's rifle clicked empty.
Out,
he growled, slinging it and pulling a beast of a hunting knife. 10 inches of serrated steel, a reaper's tooth.
Time to get dirty.
The last 4 closed in, bottlenecked tight. Aaron took the first, a twitching woman in a nightgown. Tomahawk through the temple, down. Fireball lunged at the second, a bald bastard with bloody gums, driving the knife up under its jaw, twisting, out. 2 left. Aaron swung, catching a lanky, infested mid-leap, blade cracking its chest open. Fireball finished the last. Ronnie Tate, a scrawny local meth head thief now infested, slamming the knife into its throat, ripping sideways. Blood sprayed, black in the green, and the bridge fell silent but for the crackle of distant flames. Aaron stood over the pile, breathing hard, tomahawk slick.
Should have brought the fucking AR,
he muttered.
Didn't think it'd blow up like this.
Fireball wiped his knife on a corpse's shirt, smirking despite the gore.
Live and learn, Chief. Still got the job done.
For now,
Aaron said, eyes scanning the dark. The fires roared louder, and more shadows flickered in the distance. Dozens, maybe more, spilling from trailers and shacks. The hornet's nest was kicked, and the night wasn't letting go. Florida, Sunrise Palms, 55 plus estates. Half a country away, the night air in suburban Tampa hung humid and thick, clinging to the skin like old guilt. A golf cart hummed low across the cracked sidewalk of Sunrise Palms 55 plus estates. Its paint sun-faded, roof sagging, American flag decals peeling like war wounds. Mike Boogout Russo drove, hunched slightly, PVS 14 sweeping for movement, suppressed HK 416 across his chest, Ka-bar sheathed at his side. John Sven Christensen was stuffed in the back like a slab of meat, too damn big for the seat, 6 feet 7 inches and stacked like an NFL lineman turned Viking cosplayer, battle axe slung across his back, 1911, on his hip. Pete, ex-Tampa PD mall ninja, sat shotgun, NVGs on, jaw tight, suppressed AR-15 on his lap, Springfield XD 9mm holstered.
I still say we should have hot-wired a Tesla,
Sven grumbled, his deep voice a soft rumble.
This thing's got the armor of a soda can.
Yeah, but it's quiet. Think of it like a Viking Uber.
Bugout finished with a grin, easing the cart forward down the sandy back trail.
Death, glory, and maybe a bingo hall raid on the way.
Bugout cracked a smile, eyes forward.
Gramps left the keys in the ignition. Gotta respect the classics. Hey, John, what's with the big-ass axe?
Aaron had a good idea, can't argue with classics, and this...
Sven pointing to his battle axe.
This is 100% a fuck-you-up classic.
You think Aaron's dad's still alive?
Pete asked, voice low, scanning the mobile homes lining the narrow lane. Bugout didn't answer at first. The cart rolled past a yard of flamingos and a sun-bleached "Don't worry, be happy" sign. Porch lights were dark. So were the windows.
He's stubborn, like Aaron,
Sven said finally.
Had time, had a plan. That flag trick, pretty fucking smart.
Flag trick?
Pete asked. Bugout pointed at a double wide with a faded green sheet fluttering out the window.
Aaron and his dad set it up when shit got sketchy. Cloth out the window. Green's clear, safe to extract. Yellow's caution, wounded, sick, maybe half infested. Red's do not come. House of horrors.
And no flag?
Pete pressed.
Means he never had time to hang one.
Bugout said quietly. The cart crawled to a stop between 2 overgrown palms near the rally point, an old shuffleboard court, concrete cracked and mossy, lines faded to ghosts. Bugout killed the motor. Mosquitoes buzzed, distant groans muffled and wet. Sven stepped off, cracking his knuckles, adjusting his axe. Bugout checked his suppressor. Pete racked his AR, the sound sharp but hushed.
2 houses ahead, second on the right. Lot 17.
Bugout said, scanning thermals.
Green we go. Yellow we clear carefully. Red we burn it from outside.
Pete nodded.
You boys ever clear a trailer park before?
Bugout snorted.
Nope, but I cleared Kandahar. Close enough. Let's move.
They advanced on foot, low, quiet, NVGs glowing, Bugout on point, Pete flanking left, Sven hulking in the rear, axe unslung. They hit Lot 17. No flag, no light, no sound.
Could be he never got the chance,
Sven whispered.
Could be a trap,
Pete said, tension high.
They play dead, then boom.
Bug-out signaled. Move. They crept to the back, boots brushing pine needles. The rear latch hung loose, just like Aaron had said. A shape moved inside. Slow, uneven, listing.
Is that him?
Pete asked. Sven narrowed his eyes.
One way to find out.
Bug-out eased the screen door open, just a crack. A gaunt, gray-skinned figure shuffled into view. Mr. Collins, Aaron's dad, mouth working in slow circles.
Mr. Collins,
Sven said softly, lowering the axe but keeping it ready. The shape froze, turned, hissed.
Shit!
Pete snapped, raising his AR.
No shots!
Bug-out barked, diving forward. He caught the infested man mid-lunge, ramming him into the porch rail. The old man thrashed, snarling, strength unnatural, eyes clouded but not fully gone. Late stage.
Hold him!
Sven bellowed, charging in. One heavy arm locked the man's shoulders. Bug-out yanked a flashlight, red filter on, flashing the eyes. No pupil response.
He's gone,
Bug-out said.
Call it.
Sven's jaw clenched. His father's face was still there, a ghost. He stepped back, then brought the axe down, fast, final, a clean split through the skull. The porch fell silent. A moan rose, low, then a chorus of creaky voices. The park erupted. Dozens of elderly infested shuffled out, liver spots, sunken eyes, snapping dentures, slippers dragging, gowns flapping, canes and IV poles in tow. A wrinkled wall of death.
Bingo hall from hell!
Bug-out yelled HK416 up. Sven swung his axe, cleaving a grandpa's skull. Pete's AR spat. Thwip, thwip. 2 down. Then 5 swarmed him like a pile of ants swarming a picnic dinner. Dentures sank into his arm. Claws ripped his leg.
Help!
Limbs tore free. Guts spilled. Screams drowned in wet shredding.
Pete's lunch!
Bug-out shouted, K-bar slashing.
Bounce!
Sven dropped one more.
Cart now!
They hit it, Bug-out flooring it, Sven standing on back, axe swinging like mailbox baseball. Heads popped off, 1, 2, 3, 4. Blood and gray hair spraying. The horde funneled tight, too fast, almost a trap. Could they think? They hit the rally point, Sven hopping off, axe dripping.
Too close,
he panted.
Felt planned.
What do we tell Aaron?
Asked Bug-out. Bug-out laughed, ragged, wiping his car.
If those wrinkly bastards can think, we're fucked.
He's gone,
Sven said hard.
No details.
Agreed.
Bug-out nodded.
No point saying his old man was zombie chow or that you axed him.
Bug-out wiped his car on his pant leg, staring off toward the swamp's dark edge.
Back to the bunker for me,
Sven said, voice low, steady.
Need to hole up, figure out what's next.
Bug-out nodded, sheathing his knife.
Swamps for me. Got a spot out there. Quiet, hidden. We'll call Aaron in the morning, give him a sit rep.
Seriously, just tell him his dad's gone,
Sven added, turning toward the North Trail.
No need for the rest.
Agreed,
Bug-out said, stepping south.
He don't need to know how it went down. Not yet.
They parted ways without another word, Sven's heavy steps fading into the pines, Bug-out melting into the swamp's murk. The night swallowed them both, leaving only the distant hum of mosquitoes and the soft crackle of a bug zapper somewhere in the dark. The bridge was a slaughterhouse, a tangle of infested corpses clogging the narrow span, blood pooling black in the green glow of Aaron's NVGs. The distant flames from the Blue Ranch and Problem House crackled, casting flickering shadows across the Ohio fields. But the night had gone quiet. Too quiet. Aaron crouched low beside Fireball behind a rusted tractor off the road, both breathing hard, scanning the dark for movement. The horde had thinned, but more shapes lurked, shambling out of trailers and shacks. They'd kicked the hornet's nest good, and it wasn't done buzzing. Aaron's tomahawk dripped in his hand, slick with blood and mud, the unsuppressed Glock 19 still holstered on his pistol belt. Underestimated this shit show, Fireball slung his empty AR-15 over his shoulder, the thermal scope useless now, his hunting knife sheathed but stained. The loot bag sat heavy at their feet, food, meds, ammo, drugs, a grim prize from a night gone sideways. Aaron broke the silence, voice low and grim.
We have to do something with these corpses. Some might still be viable, or reanimating.
He nodded toward the pile, a twitching arm catching his eye. Fireball spat into the dirt.
Let's burn the fucking pile. It'll attract the hordes, draw them here, and we can slip off north, away from them.
Aaron nodded, jaw tight.
Blocks the bridge, too. Sends a message. You'll fucking die coming this way. Covers our exfil.
Damn right.
Fireball said, a grim smirk tugging his lips.
Gas is back at the shithole house. Let's move.
They dropped the loot bags and slunk back to the problem house, NVG's picking up its dying fire. The rusted pickup's tank was half full. Aaron siphoned gas into a jerry can, while Fireball grabbed gas-soaked rags from the porch. Grabbing the cans, they hustled back, the weight slowing them as distant moans closed in. At the bridge, Aaron doused the pile. Fireball struck a match, and flames roared up, swallowing the bodies in a crackling blaze. The heat hit their faces, the firelight painting the night orange, infested twitching, then stilling as shadows turned toward the glow, drawn south just as planned.
Good enough,
Aaron said.
Let's go.
Fireball adjusted his bag.
We played this way too lightly, bro. I didn't think it was this bad around us either. Don't beat yourself up too bad. We made it out alive and clean. That's what matters.
Aaron grunted, wiping the tomahawk on his camo BDU pants.
Alive, yeah. Clean's debatable. Whole damn AO's infested now.
I'm a few miles up,
Fireball said.
Got houses to clean out by my place. Kids and my girl are there. When the team shows, y'all can help clear it. Gonna take a metric fuck ton of ammo.
Count me in. Thanks for your help, bro,
Aaron said.
Keep your ham on our frex,
Fireball added, checking his radio.
Cells are going down soon. That's when the real shit's hitting the fan.
Got it,
Aaron said, patting his radio on his plate carrier.
Stay sharp.
Fireball smirked.
Always, Chief.
He traipsed off into the cornfield, disappearing into the night, and the corn stalks as the fire roared from houses in the distance. Aaron slunk north, tree-lined shadows his cover, the blaze drawing the infested south. His AO was a war zone now. 2 days ago, after a hospital shift, patients twitching, doctors whispering, charts off, the media downplayed it as isolated, election year lies. Paranoia drove him to board the ranch house windows, stock bleach, and peroxide. It paid off. Boots sank into mud, the half-hour trek a gamble, but the fire bought time. Home loomed, a ranch-style house, single story with a garage left and barn out back, windows boarded tight from 2 days ago. Before he slipped onto the porch, he could hear Odin's ever-present growl, setting the loot bags beside his gear, tomahawk, NVGs, radio, and knocked low 3 taps.
Tessa, it's me.
The door cracked open. Tessa's face, pale, sharp-eyed, flashed relief, then horror at his mess. Black t-shirt streaked with gore, camo BDUs caked in mud, plate carrier splattered, Glock in its Safariland holster. Her heart pounded.
Jesus, Aaron.
She hissed.
Strip the fuck down. Now, we have to decontaminate you.
I know,
he said, voice tired. He unclipped the plate carrier, then the pistol belt, peeling off the t-shirt and BDUs, kicking off crusted boots, standing in boxers, skin streaked, cold air biting. Tessa stepped out in latex gloves and a surgical mask, carrying a flashlight, a jug of water, bleach, peroxide, Dawn soap, and a trash bag. She performed the same decontamination ritual Aaron had done to her 2 days before, the scrub down with bleach and Dawn, pupil checks with the flashlight, Odin's wagging approval and love for his friend, and finally the finger prick, blood smeared under UV light.
You're good. No infection, no parasites.
she said, tossing the gloves and mask into the bag.
Wasn't gonna let him get close,
he muttered, but not telling her, he went hand to hand with about a dozen infested freak shows. She handed him a gray t-shirt and black pants. He stepped inside, loot and gear in tow, her shutting the door. The lantern cast shadows across the boarded living room. Tessa set the bleach down, eyes narrowing.
I saw 2 fires. I thought there was only one infested house.
Aaron's face hardened, a dark flicker in his eyes.
There was only one infested house. The other's not a problem anymore.
What? What does that mean, Aaron?
Means it's handled, Tess. That's all you need for now.
She stepped closer, voice firm, worried.
Handled how? You were covered in blood, 2 places burning, acting like it's nothing. That's not you. Not what we're about. What did you do?
Aaron's jaw tightened, his expression locking down harder.
What I had to keep us safe. You don't need the details. Not tonight. We have work to do tomorrow, while the power's still on. I don't know how much longer it will hold. I need to know what's going out there. Keep trying to reach the girls. That's your main priority.
He turned toward the kitchen, the tomahawk's blood-streaked edge glinting in the lantern light as he walked away, leaving her standing there, her faith and his path scraping against each other in the silence. Next day, the ranch house stood as a fortress of shadows, the boarded windows blocking out the gray dawn creeping over the Ohio fields. Inside, the air hung heavy with bleach, and the faint tang of blood Aaron couldn't scrub off his soul. He'd collapsed on the couch after decon, gray t-shirt and black pants still on, tomahawk and Glock within reach, sleep claiming him like a fist. 6 hours later, he jolted awake, body aching, mind sluggish but snapping to focus in the early morning dawn. The battery lantern flickered low, casting Tessa's silhouette as she sat across the room, staring at the loot bags they hadn't unpacked. He sat up, rubbing his face, voice rough.
Tess, Emily and Sarah, any word?
Tessa's eyes met his, tired and edged with a mother's quiet ache. She set her cell phone down.
Emily's in Indiana. College dorms locked down. Last call 2 days ago. She's scared but safe, I think. Sarah.
Her voice faltered, then steadied.
Nothing. MIA. No contact. She was in Cincinnati. Downtown apartment. City's gone dark. No news coming out, just the same tired stories on the net and nothing on cell phones.
Aaron nodded, the weight settling in. Tessa's daughters, Emily, holding out in Indiana, and Sarah, the free-spirit hippie girl, missing in Cincy, were a raw nerve. Sarah was all peace and love, tie-dye, and bare feet, but Tessa had drilled it into both girls before shit hit the fan. Any emergency, you get to Aaron's place. Sarah had been close to her mom, nodding along, but her wandering soul made her hard to pin down. No word. Did she try and fail, or was she still out there, chasing her own path? He stood, stretching stiff muscles.
Team's not here yet. Fireball set a day to rally. It might take longer. I'm waiting to hear from Hammer and Jace.
James Hammer Palmer and Jason Jace Lurie, part of the crew, scattered since the chaos hit.
We can't roll into Cincy or anywhere for that matter blind. That's suicide without them. I've tried to text and call them, but no replies. My guess is they're either en route or bunkering in too. Let's go over what we know in the plans,
Aaron said.
It's been about 3 weeks since the first reports hit Canada. No info coming out now. My guess is the transmission rate and contagion window. I figure it's like this. Week 1, they're carriers, not contagious. By day 8 or 10, they turn contagious, start showing symptoms.
Tessa chimed in.
That fits. A week and a half ago, I saw attendance drops at school. Teachers calling in or just not showing up.
Aaron continued.
By day 14, the parasite takes control. Days 17 to 20, they're full-blown freak shows. Explains the delayed government response. They didn't take it seriously, and by day 10, it was already in the U.S.
That timeline fits.
Tessa said, nodding.
Here at the house, power's still on. But how's the internet?
Aaron asked.
Spotty.
Tessa replied.
Only mainstream media sites load. State-run propaganda channels.
Okay, government's 100% in lockdown mode, even if they won't say it publicly.
Aaron said.
I'm not surprised. They've hit the net kill switch. Still pushing shelter in place, essential workers only. Power company, healthcare, police, military. Not Walmart or liquor stores this time. Not like the last pandemic. They're calling all healthcare and essential workers to report ASAP.
For me, hospital's a no-go.
Aaron cut in.
I'd bet it's swarming. Active infestation by now. Power's holding for now, but who knows how long. I've got a plan. Solar farm a few miles out. I'll steal some 500-watt panels. Strategic transfer of equipment to alternate locations.
He said with a dry laugh.
Then the cell tower near here. Those have 20 large cap batteries and inverters. Enough to run the house, heat, water pumps, lights, everything. Recon's next. Dollar General. 4 miles out. Far enough on the outskirts I shouldn't hit police or military, if any are left. Just a couple dozen houses nearby. We can start planning to get Sarah, but I can't ask Clint to go. His family needs him. And now that we've seen what we're up against, I won't take you into that either. So we wait for the boys to show up.
Tessa exhaled, relief mixing with dread.
Good. I'd die for Sarah, but I'm not losing you two. She knows to come here, always has. I told her 100 times, any trouble? This is home base.
Yeah,
Aaron said, voice low.
She's smart, might still show. But we're low on supplies, even with my preps. We still need stuff. The loot's not enough. Dollar General's about 4 miles out. We recon it, hope it's still intact. Maybe since it's closer to town, there's still people or cops around. Wishful thinking, most likely. If not, we stock up till the team rolls in.
Tessa's eyes narrowed, voice dropping.
I'm with you, Aaron. But those fires, the blood, you can't keep shutting me out.
He met her gaze, jaw tight, about to reply, when the ham radio crackled to life.
Alpha Charlie 5-1, this is Hammer. Do you copy?
A stressed voice cut through, repeating,
Alpha Charlie 5-1, this is Hammer. Do you copy?
Aaron locked eyes with Tessa, lunging for the radio.
Hammer, this is Alpha Charlie. I copy. Walk ident.
Hammer ident. Charlie Alpha Zulu.
Hammer responded, voice taut.
Alpha Actual,
Aaron said, firm.
Sit rep.
Hammer inbound. ETA 5 mics.
Hammer snapped.
I'm not alone. Coming in hot. Hostiles in tow. I repeat, hostiles in tow.
Static hissed as the line cut. Aaron dropped the radio, hand sliding to the Glock, eyes hard.
Gear up, Tess. Now.
The ranch house hulked under a gray dawn, its boarded windows choking out the weak light spilling over the Ohio fields. Inside, Aaron's hand hovered on the ham radio, Hammer's hostiles in tow, still crackling. 5 minutes. Tessa stood frozen by the couch, cell phone slipping from her grip, last night's loot bags untouched. Engines roared north, gunfire snapped closer, slicing the silence. Aaron snapped too, voice steady despite the pit in his gut.
Tessa, gear up, now!
He thrust a plate carrier at her, 6 30-round mags in pouches. Then, his AR-15, red dot and magnifier zeroed for 300 yards. Grabbing her arms gently, eyes locked with protective love, he said,
Listen to me. Put the red dot low on the windshield. Pull the trigger. Count each shot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. At 28, switch the magazine. You can do this. I love you.
Soft, stern, steady. Her eyes welled, tears cutting tracks down her cheeks, but she nodded, trembling. He kissed her forehead. Softly he said,
You got this, baby.
Then grabbed his AK-47 Glock and combat knife.
Tess, backside of the retention wall, stack 3 mags beside you. It'll make your reloads easier,
he said, slinging the AK over his ceramic SAPI-plated carrier. 8 30-round mags, 1 mag in the weapon. Glock on his belt with a 30-round mag, 2 15-rounders in pouches, 2 30-round spares in his cargo pocket.
When I open fire, shoot anything not a Ford truck with a trailer.
He sprinted north 50 yards down the one-lane road, boots pounding across the street to set the flanking ambush, keying the radio mid-run.
Hammer, bring it in fast. I'm opposite the drive. Fields of fire are set. Ditch it close to the house if you have to.
Tessa stumbled to the retention wall, knelt low, bushes masking her. Shaking hands stacked 3 mags, AR barrel steadying as she used the wall for a stable shooting position. She could hear the engines roaring closer. A 2020 Ford F-250 tore in, hammer at the wheel, bullet holes pocking the cab, trailer skidding, one tire shot out, sparking on the rim. It veered, sliding into the ditch past the driveway, front bumper buried, driver's side facing the road, passenger side toward the house. A white SUV on gaudy 22-inch rims and a lowered Honda Civic roared behind. Thugs, murderous low-IQ garbage straight from the urban cesspit leaning out, 9mm pistols popping, AR-15 barking, AK crink chattering. These pieces of filth zeroed in, focused on the truck. They didn't see the specter of death waiting by the ditch. Aaron dropped to a knee. AK roared. Mag dumping the SUV. Rounds shredded windshield, hood, engine, driver's door. Tires blew. Before any of the occupants could realize they were now the hunted, it spun off, front bumper catching. It pitched, rolled into the ditch, ejecting one thug. A wet crunch as the wreck crushed him, legs pinned, twitching. The SUV bounced back onto its rims, smoking and bullet-riddled. Tessa's red dot wobbled. First shot, pinged wide.
One shit.
She whispered, tears blurring.
Please, God, let Aaron live.
Second cracked the Civic windshield low.
2, okay.
Glass webbed.
3, I have to be careful. What if I shoot Aaron by mistake? 4, 5.
Rounds ripped hood and windshield. Tires popped front end shredded with each shot, finding its mark. The car swerved and slid, tires smoking, rims sparking on the pavement off the road, and finally stuck in the ditch. At 28, her mag clattered. Fumbling, she swapped it, kept firing, breath hitching, but steadying. Lynn leapt from the F-250's passenger side, shotgun up. She moved to the trailer's rear for cover. A low-life thug staggered out of the Civic, pistol raised. She screamed hate, 5 double-aught buck shells booming. She racked the next and fired again and again. Meat blasted off him, splattering the car, buckshot tearing through him, and the Civic's frame silencing him and ending the threat. Hammer jumped from the driver's side. Pistol blazing 9mm rounds snapped at the SUV, sinking with Aaron's barrage. The SUV rocked, smoking. Aaron reloaded, shifted to the Civic, then back. Hammer's pistol cracked. A thug slumped in the SUV's backseat. Silence hit, ringing ears, hissing tires. Aaron stood, pistol out, stalking the SUV, pure hate in his eyes, still barking rounds, punching the wreck. Hammer stopped shooting, curious, watching as he reloaded. Tessa's scope tracked Aaron, her breath caught. He wasn't firing in defense anymore. Not protecting, just destroying. The crushed thug lay on the ground beside the SUV. Aaron loomed, fired 3 rounds point blank into his head. The skull popped wetly cold. Unflinching. He walked up to the driver, whose chest and shoulders were bullet-riddled. The scumbag was choking on his own blood. Aaron pulled his combat knife, reached in and slit the driver's throat. Blood sprayed, hate burning in Aaron's eyes. Jaw tight, even a slight smirk on his face when he did it. She whispered into the silence, trembling.
Jesus, Aaron, stop. What are you doing?
Her voice cracked, lost under the ringing aftermath. And still, he didn't stop. He didn't even flinch. A backseat thug groaned. Hit but alive, Aaron reached in, dragged him out, knife flashing. Hammer froze, stunned. Lynn's jaw dropped open, her shotgun limp. Tessa's tears spilled. The scope locked on Aaron. She was horrified. Aaron drove the blade in, gutting him groin to chest, ripping through his stomach, his intestines spilling out onto the ground. Screams gargled to silence, blood pooling in the dirt. He shouldered his AK. Fresh mag slammed in. Mag dumped the last body in the back, shredding flesh and metal. His gun barked alone. Hammer, Lynn, and Tessa watching is stunned silence. Pure hate spilling out of Aaron, his hate for the world and what it was turning into. Hate for the people like this that would try to hurt his friends and his family. Hate because he had watched for decades the scum criminals walk free thanks to a corrupt, broken legal system. Corrupt judges and cops while good people suffered. Now none of that mattered. Now it was a fight to survive, and if he could get some payback along the way, he was going to take it. Hammer stepped up, voice low, then sharp.
Bro! You still in there?
Aaron froze. Knife-dripping eyes flicked up and caught Tessa's scope glinting. Her tears and terror punched through him. The hate in him cracked. Shame bled in behind it, hot and hollow. He stood wiping the blade on his pants. He wiped the blade on his pants, not to clean it, but to stop his hand from shaking. His mouth opened to speak, but nothing came out at first. Tessa slumped behind the wall, sobbing quietly, rifle down at her side. Lynn just stared, stunned, shotgun slack. Finally, he cleared his throat. Aaron glanced at Hammer.
Yeah, bro. I'm here.
Then coldly said,
The AK Crink is mine.
He paused, looked at Lynn, then Tessa's position.
We got to get you unstuck and up to the house. All this noise will attract attention. The bad kind.
Snapping back, he knew this had hit Tessa hard. He walked toward her position, back toward the house and barn, calling,
Tess, you okay?
She didn't stand, sitting there through tears, yelled back,
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm fine.
Aaron trudged to the barn, returning with his Nissan Xterra Pro, its 33-inch mud tires growling, his pride and joy. Winch ready, they unhitched the trailer first, dragged it aside, then hooked the F-250, pulled it out of the ditch, parking both by the barn. Hammer walked back down, kicked the SUV's door open. There, laying in the back seat, were two M4 Select fire rifles clattered out, near empty mags. Stolen. Bags of meth and fentanyl glinted inside, scattered about the cab. D-Boy's mark, empty liquor bottles, the smell of weed and death. Hammer met Aaron's gaze, hard.
Cincy's Hill. Picked these bastards up on the edge. They knew this area too well. No way this was their first time out for a country Sunday drive.
Aaron nodded, voice low.
Unload your trailer in the barn. Preps will be safe there for now. We'll need to fix that tire soon. It's going to come in handy real quick. Debrief after you're settled.
Hammer clapped his shoulder.
Got it, bro.
And headed to the trailer with Lynn. They hauled crates, canned food, ammo, a few medical kits, stacking them in the barn's shadowed corners, then grabbed their personal gear for the guest room. Aaron walked to the house, dirt and blood streaked on his pants, knife sheathed, AK slung. Inside, Tessa sat on the floor by the couch, knees up, shell-shocked, eyes red. Odin pressed close beside her, his warm bulk a steady comfort, nuzzling her arm with that affectionate, protective instinct he carried for everyone he met. She scratched his ears, shaky, grounding herself in his fur. Aaron eased down next to her, voice soft but heavy.
Tess.
She looked up, silent, trembling. He reached out, petting Odin's flank. The dog's tail thumped, a beacon of love stitching them together.
I had to,
Aaron said, eyes on her.
Those scum. They're why we're fighting to survive. I've seen their kind walk free too long. Courts, cops, all corrupt while good people bleed. Not anymore. Not with you, not with Hammer and Lynn, not with my family. There is no mercy when the stakes are this high. I ain't proud of the hate, but I'm still me. Still the man you love.
She nodded, tears welling but not falling, leaned into him, hand still on Odin. He wrapped an arm around her, steady, hate gone, love back, the crack between them raw but not broken. Lynn poked her head in.
We're set. Guest room's good.
Then stepped out. Outside, the field lay still, blood, brass, bodies. A faint moan drifted, infested lurking, but not yet. Mid-morning light clawed through the cracks of the ranch house's boarded windows, painting jagged lines across the living room. Hours since the ambush's blood dried, faint, infested moans drifting from the fields, closer, but not yet knocking. Aaron stood by the couch, AK propped against the wall, dirt and blood crusted on his pants from yesterday's hate. Tessa sat on the floor, knees up, Odin pressed against her. His tail thumped slow, a steady pulse. Hammer and Lynn sat on folding chairs dragged from the barn, gear stacked by the door. Crates of preps, Lynn's shotgun, Hammer's 6.5 Creedmoor leaning like a promise. Aaron rubbed his jaw, voice low but rough.
Power's been flickering like a damn candle. Internet's just propaganda noise. Can't trust it. There's a solar farm a few miles out, got 500-watt panels. I'm planning to strategically transfer equipment to an alternate location.
Hammer snorted, leaning forward.
Transfer, huh? You mean swipe? That shit guarded?
Aaron smirked, faint.
Not anymore. Most guards bailed when the grid started coughing. Cell tower nearby's got 20 big batteries, inverters too. If the power goes for good, we can keep the heat, water pumps, and lights running.
Tessa looked up from Odin's fur, voice quiet.
How long's that last? Batteries die, don't they?
Long enough,
Aaron said, meeting her eyes.
Years if we're smart. Water's better news. Well's deep as hell, and we've got a 5,500-gallon cistern out back. If the city lines crap out, which they will, we're still drinking.
Lynn shifted, arms crossed.
Medical's what worries me. You got anything real? IVs, antibiotics? Ain't no hospital out here.
Aaron nodded, grim.
Got some. IVs, saline, a stash of antibiotics. Scarce, though, so we ration hard. OTC pain meds, trauma kits, couple books, textbook of medicine, nursing techs. I can patch most anything, but if it's surgery level, we're praying.
Better than nothing,
Hammer muttered, scratching his neck.
Food? Ain't starving yet, are we?
A year's worth for me,
Aaron said.
Stretch with Tess here. Your haul helps, James. Canned stuff, MREs, whatever you drag from Cincy. Ain't gourmet, but we're fed.
Tessa's fingers tightened on Odin.
Stretching it how long with all of us? 4 mouths now.
Aaron's jaw twitched.
6 months, maybe 7. Depends how tight we pull belts. Ammo's deeper. 5.56 for the ARs, 7.62 for backup, 9mm for pistols. You're 6.5, James. We're set to fight, but it ain't infinite.
Hammer grinned, patting his Creedmoor.
My baby don't miss. 600 yards, lights out. Long as I got rounds, we're good.
Hammer leaned forward, tossing a crumpled meth wrapper on the table. Same jagged logo from the SUV.
Since he's a slaughterhouse. Looters. Like those bastards everywhere. Local scumbag, I'd bet. Picked him up on the edge outside of North Fairmount. I didn't think they'd chase all the way out here. But they knew this turf too well.
Lynn's jaw tightened, eyes flicking to Aaron. Tessa's hand froze on Odin's fur. Yesterday's horror creeping back. Aaron's gaze hardened.
D-Boy was small-time local. Meth and fent pusher in the sticks. Doubt that was his crew direct. Worked for someone bigger, flooding this nowhere with poison. 2 nights back, I handled a problem. 2 fires. Blue Ranch down the road, shithole problem house closer. Those scum torched them. They would have eventually tried to flush us out or burn us down. Felons, predators, same kind I gutted yesterday.
He locked eyes with Tessa, then Hammer and Lynn.
Law used to hold them back, kept predators from good people. But real talk. Law's what kept those bastards from becoming prey. Corrupt courts, soft judges, dirty cops, gone. Good people have had enough, and this is our shot to right some wrongs. They die, all of them.
Tessa stood, Odin rising with her, voice trembling but fierce.
We aren't murderers, Aaron. We're better. You're better. If we kill them, even if they deserve it, we're no different. We pray for salvation. Follow Jesus. This ain't the way. Only kill for self-defense, not hunting scum to gut like animals.
Her eyes bored into him, wet but sharp.
I need you, but I don't need you going off the rails. Don't lose who you are in all this shit.
Aaron's jaw clenched, shame cutting his hate.
Self-defense ain't waiting for their first shot, Tess. They're threats. Seen 'em walk free too long. Courts letting 'em pray while we the good people suffer and bled. Not now. Not with you.
He softened, barely.
Salvation's in me, but mercy's a luxury.
Hammer broke the silence.
Law's dead. They ain't stopping. But she's got a point, bro. Hunting's a line. Yesterday was defense. Tomorrow's a choice.
Lynn nodded.
They come, they're done. Beyond that, I'm with Tess.
Aaron exhaled.
Okay, fair enough. First we clean the mess, then we scout.
He grabbed his AR, nodded to Hammer.
Fields, wrecks, bodies. North Road needs blocking.
Hammer slung his AR ready. Outside, the field reeked. Blood, gasoline, death. The SUV and Civic sat twisted, glass and metal shredded. Bodies sprawled, gutted, shot. One skull popped like a canoe. Aaron hooked the Xterra's winch to the SUV, Hammer chaining the Civic to its rear.
Mile up, north end,
Aaron said, voice flat.
Block the road. Funnels them to the east one lane if they come.
Hammer nodded, dragging a thug's corpse by the legs, intestines trailing like a sick rope. They piled the bodies, 5 total, meat and bone, onto the wrecks, flies already buzzing. The Xterra growled, hauling the mess a mile north, M81 woodland camo blending into the brush. They dumped it across the road, SUV nose down, Civic tangled, bodies splayed like a warning. Aaron kicked a busted rim.
South's already blocked. Bridges got that pile of burnt infested from the fires. Let's make it tighter.
They drove 2 miles south, past the charred heap on the bridge, infested husks, torched from a few nights earlier, blocking the path. Beyond it, Aaron and Hammer felled 2 oaks with a chainsaw from the barn, crashing them across the road, splinters and leaves sealing the gap. The chainsaw's scream chewed through the oak, wood chips spraying like shrapnel as Aaron gripped the handle, sweat stinging his eyes. Hammer, wiping grime, paused to gulp air when a twitch in the brush snapped his gaze. A mangled, infested, jaw unhinged, eyes milk white, lurched from the undergrowth, claws raking toward Aaron's back.
Aaron! Behind you!
Hammer bellowed, voice drowned by the saw's shriek. Aaron, ear pro muffling the world, didn't flinch, oblivious, sawdust clouding his view. Hammer snatched the second chainsaw, yanked the cord, and charged, engine howling like a demon. Aaron spun, startled, just as Hammer buried the blade full throttle into the freak's gaping maw. Teeth and bone exploded. Blood and brain matter splattered trees, grass, and Aaron's shirt, chunks sticking like wet tar. The infested skull collapsed into a pulped mess, gurgling as it dropped, the chainsaw's roar choking on gore. Aaron ripped off his ear pro, panting, blood slicked, staring at Hammer.
Fuck. Close. We can't relax for a fucking second out here.
He gasped, the stench of rot and gas thick in the air.
Yeah, man. Seems like every damn move we make, we will need some type of guard or overwatch,
James said. Back at the Xterra, Hammer wiped sweat, glancing at Aaron.
Yesterday. Hell of a show, bro. Fireball'd be proud, but you went hard. All of them?
Aaron stared at the felled trees, jaw tight.
Had to. Scum like that, D-boys kind. They had it coming, deserved every second of it and more. It was my call. I had Fireball pull over watch, but it got ugly. Handled it, but they kept coming. Thing is, with all this, shit has hit the fan, and you know as well as I do, those lowlifes will have figured out there are no cops and they can do whatever they want to whomever they want to. If we don't eliminate them first, they will eventually try to come for us. And in numbers. They may get infested too, so either way, they will come for us. As for Fireball, Clint's at his house taking care of his family. When the rest of the guys show up, we're going to help him clean up his neighborhood too.
Hammer grunted, slinging his AR.
Got it. Just Tess's face, man. She's your break. And her seeing you like this, well, it's hurting her.
Aaron nodded, slow.
Yeah, she is. I just need her to understand none of this changes how I feel about her. And I'm only doing this to protect all of us.
Back at the ranch, Aaron parked the Xterra by the barn. The guys headed inside to clean up. Mess had soaked into everything.
Let's take a minute, eat, regroup, talk next steps. It's been a messy couple of days,
Aaron said to Hammer. In the kitchen, Tess and Lynn were already busy making a big pot of chili for everyone.
We need to use the stuff in the fridge before we lose power. There is a bunch of hamburger figured, let's use that. And we have a shitload of beans, because apparently preppers are supposed to love them. Or something.
She smirked. The guys got cleaned up and sat down at the kitchen table with Tessa and Lynn. Tessa started grace, only asking to bless the food and for protection and guidance through these times. Guidance in a way to follow Jesus and not let the world separate us from him. Amen, they all said, and began to eat. Aaron spoke up.
Dollar General is up the road a little ways, few miles from here. I think we need to go check it out and see what's going on closer to town. We can take some of the 2-track roads through the woods and cornfields. It'll give us some cover and keep us off the main roads.
Hammer smirked.
Recon's a good call.
Hammer briefed the group.
When we were trying to get here, it was a circus. The main roads are blocked with checkpoints all over the city limits. We couldn't get on I-275. They had every exit and entrance blocked with cop cars, semis, anything they could scrounge up. We had to use almost all our gas getting out here, due to taking back roads, side streets, hell even alleys, and some suburban backyards. Those yuppies in Indian Hill are gonna be pissed.
He laughed.
It looked like National Guard was setting up at the big Walmart distribution centers. I saw FEMA trucks in that parking lot too. Tents. People. We used to scoff at the notion of FEMA camps. But be damned if that sure as hell didn't look like one. Once we broke out of Milford toward Goshen, it got easier. But that same damn Escalade was trailing us the whole time. They made their move when we hit the country roads. I tried to call you, let you know we were inbound. But our phones have been crap the last 3 or 4 days. I don't know what messages got through, if any.
Aaron said.
I didn't get anything. I've tried texts and messages to you and the other guys for the last couple of days too. All the social media apps are giving me the spinning wheel of death buffering sign. Won't load. All my messenger apps are down. Signal, Telegram, Facebook, and Instacrap. TikTok went down before all of them. I did see a couple TikTok vids out of China that look like a complete meltdown there. The military flat-out machine gunning down civilians trying to escape a horde of infested. Then the app crashed. As for us here local, my road to the north's blocked with wrecks now. South's got trees past the burnt pile on the bridge. Thanks to you for your help with that. That funnels every bastard to the 1-lane choke east of the barn. As for the village, we need to scout it out. If there is anything hinky going on up there, I want to know about it. With that good old boys police department, anything is possible. They are heavy on firepower and short on brains. Not to mention the local bubbas, most of them, if they aren't infested, won't bother nobody. But there's always a few that'll be a pain in the ass if we aren't careful.
Hammer said,
I guess we should go take a look then. We're going to lose daylight soon. And we only have 1 set of NVGs. I wish I would have just bought those when I had the chance.
Bro, don't sweat it. I have a feeling there are going to be some laying on the ground soon enough.
said Aaron. As the guys geared up to go on a recon, Aaron went downstairs, opening his footlocker and pulling out his old service weapon, the one he carried for years during his contract security stint. A Smith & Wesson M and P40 caliber with 4 15-round mags. He grabbed his patrol chest rig, complete with 4 mags and pouches for extra gear like lockpicks, flashlights, and gummy bears. After he came back upstairs, Hammer looked at him and said,
"What, no armor?"
Not planning on getting into a firefight, bro. This is a sneak and peek only. If we meet resistance, we break contact and bail,"
Aaron said. Tessa watched him load the rifle, hands calm, too calm. That stillness wasn't peace. It was detachment. She'd seen that look before. Her Aaron was in there, but how deep? Tessa stepped close, voice small.
Be careful, please. And remember what I said. We aren't like them. We need to love our people. And love our God.
Aaron met her eyes, nodded, crack raw, but holding. By the barn, Aaron eyed the Xterra 2015 PRO 4X M81 Woodland Camo catching the sun.
4.0-liter V6, feral now,
he told Hammer, kicking a 33-inch mud terrain tire, caked with clay and blood.
3-inch lift, add-a-leafs, hauls tools, spares, food, ammo. Hefty fab bumpers scarred the limbs. Rails, worse. 30-inch light bar splits the dark. Winch pulls through hell. With a locking differential, rear's got a tire carrier. Full spare, no patches. Rock sliders took stumps. Rolls kept us whole.
Hammer ran a hand along a dented slider.
Mean son of a bitch.
Aaron opened the door, sweat, gun oil, leather.
It's Spartan. Back seat's gone. Platform, lockbox. Tessa's Bible's in the pocket. Reads it every dawn. Especially when we're running on fumes. Radio's under the dash.
Hand on the warm hood, he said,
"She ain't flashy, just steel and torque. Sanctuary when it breaks."
Hammer patted his Creedmoor.
"Here's my church, brother. So, we scout only?"
Aaron Press checked his Smith & Wesson M and P40 caliber reholstering.
"Ridger tree line. Your pick'll get you in 300 to 600 yards. You do your thing, boss. If it gets bad, I drive, you shoot."
The Xterra roared, camo fading into trees. Hammer climbed in. They peeled out. Inside, Tessa and Lynn set up the guest room. Cots creaked, Hammer's duffel unzipped, Lynn's shotgun propped. A blanket went up as a curtain, nailed tight. Lynn glanced at Tessa, pale, petting Odin as he flopped beside her.
"They'll be back. Keep busy."
Tessa nodded.
I'm going to take Odin out for a walk, grab some breakfast out of the coop for tomorrow.
"Take your pistol, Tessa,"
Lynn said.
"Odin's great and all, but he's not as fast as a bullet."
True,
said Tessa.
but he is a hell of a deterrent.
From the front yard, Tessa watched the Xterra vanish, dust curling. Odin pressed against her, steady. A moan echoed, infested, closer. She whispered,
Come back.
Too quiet for anyone but the dog. Cornstalks scraped the Xterra's woodland camo like knives on tin as Aaron weaved through narrow two-tracks, early evening dust thick in the orange light. Hammer rode shotgun 6.5 Creedmoor on his lap, AR at his boots, mags tossed between them like poker chips. Aaron's tomahawk rested in the back, edge still stained from the last run. The Dollar General, Delta Objective, was 4 miles from the ranch, just past the barricades. This was recon, not war. But Aaron's blood was already running cold. Hammer was quiet, brain still stuck in Cincinnati. The FEMA camps, the screaming, that fucking Escalade full of rot. Then the radio cracked.
Anvil, that you slinking around out there.
Aaron grinned, grabbed the mic, looked at James.
I know that voice.
Then into the radio.
Anvil actual, go.
Anvil, Fireball. I see y'all. Looks like we had the same idea. I'm posted about a quarter mile west, in the tree line. I'm guessing you're stopping at Delta?
Copy, Fireball. Affirmative on Delta. We're setting up an OP about 300 yards east. See what the fuck's crawling out here. Might shift later.
Copy that. Once you get your eyes up, key me. I'll rally.
Anvil out.
They eased the truck in as close as the tree line would let them. Across the field, a busted house sat about 100 yards off their 2 o'clock. Aaron pointed with his chin.
You want to hop up on the rack, scope that place out? Could be crawlers. Could be folks.
James nodded.
Yeah, I got it.
He stepped out, screwed on the suppressor, climbed onto the reinforced cargo rack Aaron had bolted to the roof, originally for gear. Now, a stable sniper perch. He laid flat, peered through the scope.
Got movement inside. It's twitchy.
Fucking great.
Aaron muttered.
I gotta clear it.
No cover of darkness this time, boss.
James warned.
I know, just keep your eyes up. I'll try to do it clean. How many?
Looks like 2. Elderly, maybe. Hard to say.
Aaron let out a bitter laugh.
Old don't mean slow no more. These freak shows move like fucking sprinters.
Exactly why I'm watching. Try not to paint the goddamn walls.
Aaron smirked, grabbed the tomahawk.
No promises.
He crept up, AR suppressed and low ready. Tomahawk swinging loose. Quiet kills. Save ammo. The house stank like death and piss and spoiled meat. Porch boards creaked loud under his boots. The front door hung open like a snapped jaw. Inside, shadows jerked. 2 infested. The man, gray hair, jaw hanging, teeth black as tar. The woman, fast. Her eyes locked on him before he even raised the hawk. She screeched and lunged. Claws tore into his sleeve, slicing fabric. The hiss of shredded cloth swallowed by her feral scream. Aaron staggered, nearly went down, shoulder slamming a table. Wood cracked. Floor groaned under his boots.
Hammer!
He shouted, raising his AR, but too close, too fast. Crack! The Creedmoor barked like thunder muffled in hell. Subsonic, but it still punched hard. The round blasted through the window. Her skull detonated. Blood misted the air, black, red, and stinking. Chunks of rotted brain hit the ceiling, slapped wet onto the walls. Her body dropped like a sack of meat, twitching, nerves still firing. The old man came next, teeth gnashing, tongue black, pupils blown wide. He lunged. Aaron didn't hesitate. He came up from low, tomahawk in a tight arc. Wunk, steel, slammed through the bastard's eye socket. The weight of it hit bone, crunched through. He twisted the shaft. Snap. The body convulsed, then dropped, twitching in a growing puddle of sludge that used to be a human brain. Aaron stood there, panting, hands sticky with blood, his breath fogged in the cool, rot-stinking air. The room swayed. He wiped his cheek, flung gore off his knuckles.
Clean enough?
Hammer called from the roof rack, smug. Aaron looked up, grinning despite the bile in his throat.
Fuck off!
He gave the place a quick once-over. Shelves stripped, cans exploded from bloating, a dead raccoon in the sink, no supplies, nothing worth salvaging. Just more ghosts. He keyed the mic.
Fireball, OP said, all rally at the white farmhouse across from Delta. Now.
Moving,
Clint said, already halfway there.
Roger,
said Hammer, climbing down from the roof rack. Minutes later, Fireball jogged in, carbine low, dip packed tight in his lip. He spotted the carnage inside and let out a low whistle.
Heard the pop. Damn.
Blame Hammer,
Aaron muttered as he walked through the door, motioning upstairs.
Come on, let's get a bird's eye view on Delta. See what kind of party we're crashing.
They climbed to the second floor, Hammer stretched prone behind his rifle, eye to scope. Dollar General sat across the field, about 100 yards of dead cars and busted pavement between them and it. The corn whispered in the wind. The parking lot was a graveyard, carts flipped, glass glittering like ice. Inside the store, Shapes. Dozens of them. Moving in twitchy, unnatural jerks. Shadows flickering between shelves, hissing low. Some had hair. Some didn't. None were fucking human anymore.
You boys see that shit?
Hammer growled. Aaron raised his binoculars.
Yeah.
Fireball nodded slowly.
That's a nest.
Aaron's jaw clenched.
Shelves still got product, though. Pet food, too. I'm low on Odin's stash. Didn't prep near enough for him.
Hammer glanced back.
That worth the risk?
Fireball cut in.
I'm with him. I'm running low, too. Thought I prepped deep, but this shit show's going long.
Aaron sighed, hand gripping the AR tighter.
We clear it.
Then Fireball froze.
Yo, you see that?
One of the infected stumbled out of the front doors, dragging a leg, blue uniform hanging in strips, badge still pinned to the chest. Aaron leaned in.
That's a cop.
Town's fucked then.
Fireball muttered.
Means the whole village might be gone,
Aaron said.
3,000 people. All of them meat eaters now. 10 miles from the ranch.
Hammer didn't blink.
We handle this first. All suppressed. I've got Overwatch here. You two flank low, use the cars. Pull as many out as you can. We drop them funnel style, like a damn firing squad.
Aaron nodded.
Solid.
Fireball rolled his shoulders, flexed his grip on the carbine.
Let's work.
Aaron chambered around, thumbed the selector. Tessa's voice echoed in his head again. Love our God. His lips curled.
Right now, I'm going to send a few of these assholes to meet him.
The guys headed downstairs, leaving Hammer on overwatch from the second-story window. They started to move through the yard of the house. When they got close enough to the ditch line of the road, Aaron keyed his mic.
Send it.
The snap of the Creedmoor punched the silence, the first shot breaking the air like a war drum. The infected cop's head snapped back, skull shattering like glass under pressure. He crumpled near the cart return, his pistol still holstered.
One down. Move.
Hammer's voice was ice in the comms. Aaron and Fireball sprinted, boots pounding pavement, weaving between rusted-out vehicles and broken glass. As they split left and right, clearing angles, another infested one bolted from the entrance. This one was fast. Too fast. Recently turned. Still warm. Still strong. Parasite in full control. Its jaw unhinged mid-scream, body lunging low, arms clawing. Crack! Another Creedmoor round. Its head burst open mid-stride, flinging gray matter like a firework. The body ragdolled across the hood of an old Camry, leaving a trail of orange mucus and red blood. Aaron crouched low behind a burned-out SUV. Across the lot, Fireball did the same near a pickup with no tires. Aaron raised his tomahawk, banged it once, hard on the hood. Tang! The sound echoed sharp and cold. The signal! The swarm came. Infested, poured out the doors like water bursting a pipe. A wall of death. Dozens, snarling, twitching, some dragging limbs, others sprinting, fresh blood on their teeth. Some eyes still half human, while others, eyes milky, mouths screaming.
Light 'em up!
Aaron barked. Hammer's Creedmoor punched holes from above, dropping targets with surgical precision. Aaron's AR spat hot lead, controlled bursts tearing through torsos, arms, jaws. Fireball flanked wide, laying down fire with his suppressed carbine, each hit dropping meat and bone. One freak charged, half its face gone, intestines dragging. Aaron double-tapped it, then put a round in the head for good measure. Fireball caught another mid-sprint, round through the pelvis, then chest, then head. Surgical. An infested came sprinting out the door, then leaps just as Fireball was mid-reload. Clint looked in just enough time to hear a snap and catch a glimpse. Hammer shot removing the top of the head. Orange mucus and reddish black blood spray, the body crumpling mid-leap, splattering the pavement. Clint flinched, muttering, "Shit!" as the headless freak drops, Hammer's shot saving his ass. They moved like a machine. Kill. Shift. Kill again. Blood pooled in the lot, thick with that neon orange ooze the fresh ones always leaked. 14 lay in heaps around the doorway, twisted piles of steaming gore, limbs twitching in death spasms. Several more left and right of the entrance, all oozing and pooling on the pavement.
That's a fucking welcome mat.
Fireball muttered, smoke curling off his barrel. Aaron nodded, swapped mags.
Let's clear it.
They stacked on the front doors, rifles tight to shoulders, hearts hammering. The stench of blood and rot seeped through the cracks, soaked into every inch of the place.
On 3,
Aaron said,
1, 2, move.
He shoved the door in. They flowed inside like shadows with teeth. Aaron broke left, sweeping down the canned goods aisle. Fireball cut right, slipping past busted coolers and a shattered end cap of sodas. Broken lights flickered above, casting strobe-like chaos over blood trails and smeared footprints. They moved clean, rifles up, steps light, corners sliced. No movement, no sound, then a thump and scratching. Back office, behind the counter. Aaron froze mid-step and pointed. Fireball gave a tight nod, falling in behind him. They crept up, muzzles leveled. Aaron slid next to the door, Fireball posted at an angle, rifle trained. Aaron took a breath, twisted the knob, and flung it wide. Something launched out. Both men flinched back, rifles instinctively tracking, but it wasn't infected. It was a dog. Small, dirty, shaggy little mutt. Chihuahua Shih Tzu mix maybe. Something cobbled together from scraps and survival. It skidded across the tile, tail tucked, shaking like hell. They both blinked.
A dog? Seriously? A fucking dog.
Fireball hissed, lowering his sights. Aaron laughed, the first real one in days.
Looks like an Ewok. Someone put him there before this shit happened. Who knows how long he's been in there?
Aaron grabbed a bowl off the shelf and a bottle of water, pouring it for the little fella. He knelt.
Come here, buddy.
The mutt hesitated, sniffed, then shuffled forward and licked Aaron's hand. He scooped the little guy up, mud and fur and fear all bundled into one. Aaron read the tag.
Scamp. Huh. Well, Scamp, welcome to the apocalypse.
He clicked his mic.
Hammer, we're clear inside. Bring the X up. Let's get busy. Also, I got a new friend. Clint, you're going to grab your truck too. We clean this place out. Bare walls when we're done.
You read my mind, Chief.
As Clint double-timed out the door, Hammer's voice cracked back, dry and deadpan.
Roger that. Hope it doesn't bark at dead things.
About an hour later, as they were finishing loading the food and supplies into the X and Clint's Jeep Gladiator, Aaron grabbed the Beifeng UV-5R, keyed the mic.
Test, do you copy? Radio check.
A reply quickly came back.
I copy. You guys okay? Oh, should I use call signs or something?
Aaron laughed before keying the mic again.
It's okay. Just use Ravenwood for us.
Okay, Ravenwood. You guys are corny as hell.
She said, smiling with a sarcastic tone while keying the mic. Aaron laughed.
Maybe a little bit. We're loading up. Gonna be a few.
Tessa replied.
Okay, be safe. Hurry home. Those sounds, they are getting closer. Odin is acting anxious and on edge. To be honest, I am too.
Roger that, Tess. Be home soon. You and Lynn hold it down. Don't go out if you don't have to. Both of you keep your sidearms on you at all times.
Aaron said. Tess replied.
Okay, I will. I'll tell Lynn too. I love you. You guys please be safe.
Just then, Tessa saw Odin jump up, hair on the back of his neck, standing on end. He was locked in on the front of the house.
Aaron, gotta go. Odin is alerting.
Tess said with fear in her voice, not releasing the mic push to talk button.
Oh shit, what the hell?
Odin growling and barking in the background, his vicious fight bark. Aaron keyed mic.
Tess, respond.
Static. Scamp yapping, knowing something is wrong. Aaron's thumb jammed the mic button, his voice a blade cutting through the dusk.
Tess, respond, damn it.
Static hissed back, a cold, empty snarl. Odin's barking echoed in his head, deep, vicious, the kind that meant blood was coming. Scamp's yapping spiked, the little mutt trembling in the Xterra's passenger seat, claws scratching the leather. Hammer finishing, strapping down dog food on down on the roof rack, eyes sharp.
What's up, boss? Trouble at the ranch?
Tessa's not answering.
Aaron snapped, voice low but fraying.
Odin's losing his shit. Something's wrong.
Hammer responded,
Lynn, we gotta get back, bro.
Fireball jogged up, carbine bouncing, his truck's tailgate still open with looted Dollar General crates, canned beans, pet food, bleach.
We rolling now. I heard the dog. That ain't good.
Aaron's jaw tightened, mind racing. The ranch was only a few miles out. Tessa and Lynn were armed. Glocks, a shotgun, enough ammo to hold a small wave. But those sounds Tessa mentioned, the ones getting closer. Infected didn't stalk quietly. If it wasn't a swarm, it was worse. Raiders, or something new. He keyed the mic again.
Ravenwood to Tessa, Lynn, anyone. Talk to me.
Nothing. Just static, thick as the dust coating the Xterra's dash. Hammer's eyes flicked to the horizon.
Sun's dropping. We move now. We're driving blind soon. Call it.
Aaron's fist clenched the tomahawk's handle, still slick with gore. Tessa's voice,
I love you. Be safe.
Burned in his skull. He couldn't lose her.
We roll,
he said, voice like gravel.
Hammer, you're shooter in the X. Fireball, take your truck, trail us. No stops. If it moves and it ain't human, drop it.
Fireball nodded, spitting dip into the dirt.
On it. Let's haul ass.
Hammer climbed into the Xterra, sliding his AR across his lap. Scamp whimpered, curling into a ball. Aaron gunned the engine, tires spitting gravel as they peeled out, fireballs modded out Jeep Gladiator roaring behind. The two-track was a gauntlet, cornstalks clawing the trucks, ruts jarring their bones. The orange dusk bled into purple, shadows stretching long and hungry. Aaron's eyes flicked between the road and the radio, willing it to crackle.
Try again,
Hammer said, voice steady but tight. Aaron grabbed the Baofeng.
Tessa, Lynn, this is Ravenwood. We're inbound, 3 mics out. Hold tight. Respond if you can.
Static. Then a faint pop. A voice, garbled, female, but too shredded to make out.
Aaron. Back. Hurry.
Tessa!
Aaron shouted, flooring the gas. The Xterra lurched, suspension groaning.
Say again!
Nothing. Hammer's knuckles whitened on his rifle.
That didn't sound good, man.
No shit,
Aaron growled. His mind spun, worst-case scenarios flashing like a strobe, infected breaching the fence, raiders hitting the house, or something else, something they hadn't seen yet. The cop's badge at the Dollar General burned in his memory. If the town was gone, the ranch was a lone candle in a storm. Fireball's voice crackled over the comms.
Yo, Anvil, I got lights moving on my 6. Half a mile back, maybe. Could be nothing. Could be trouble.
Aaron's gut twisted.
Headlights?
Nah, smaller. Flashlights, maybe. Or eyes reflecting. Hard to tell.
Hammer twisted in his seat, scoping the road behind through the rear window.
Can't see shit. Too much dust.
Keep eyes on it, Fireball,
Aaron said.
If it closes, call it.
Roger.
Fireball replied, voice taut. The Xterra hit pavement, the sudden smoothness jarring after the dirt. 6 miles to the ranch. Aaron's hands gripped the wheel, knuckles pale. Scamp's yapping had dropped to a low growl, his tiny body rigid, staring out the windshield.
Fucking dog's got better instincts than us,
Hammer muttered.
Yeah,
Aaron said,
and he's scared shitless.
The radio stayed dead. Every second of silence was a knife in Aaron's chest. Tessa was tough. She had been shooting before, even with the ambush 2 days ago, and her experience with that. She wasn't trained to handle any real threats. Lynn, Hammer's wife, who'd grown up with a .22 and could shoot, didn't have the training either. Just range days and some self-defense shooting training. But Odin's bark in the background, Aaron knew that bark. It wasn't just a warning, it was a war cry. Tessa crouched behind the porch railing, the AR pistol's grip slick with sweat. The 10-inch barrel was light, perfect for her, the red dot steady despite her racing heart. The forced reset trigger set, ready to unleash hell. She dropped the Baofeng in the kitchen, Aaron's voice.
Tess!
Cut off as she'd scrambled for the rifle. No time to grab it now. Lynn knelt beside her, clutching the 9mm Smith & Wesson carbine from Hammer's gear. Her hands shook, sweat stinging her eyes, tunnel vision narrowing the world.
Tessa, what do we do?
She whispered, voice breaking. Across the field, 20 infested, neighbors from County Road 12, a mile and a half away, lurched through the grass. Parasite-ridden, their bodies twitched, jaws unhinged, milky eyes glinting. Some wore flannel, others nightgowns, all stained with blood and orange ooze. The swarm wasn't huge, but it was enough to overrun the ranch. Odin paced the porch, 120 pounds of white-furred fury. His growl was a storm, hackles up, teeth bared. Tessa's eyes flicked to the chicken coop. The hens clucked, oblivious, too loud, too tempting.
We hide.
Tessa hissed.
Maybe they pass.
Lynn nodded, gripping the carbine tighter. They ducked lower, watching the swarm stumble closer. Tessa's heart pounded, praying for silence. Then the chickens squawked louder. A hen flapped against the wire. The infested froze. Heads snapped toward the coop, milky eyes locked on the ranch. Odin's growl erupted into a bark, deep, vicious, a call to war. The swarm turned as one, snarling, sprinting now, claws tearing earth. 20 meat-eaters, neighbors turned monsters, charging the fence.
Shit!
Tessa stood, AR pistol up.
Lynn, we fight.
Lynn rose, carbine shaking.
I can't...
You can.
Tessa snapped.
Shoot, damn it, now!
Tessa stepped to the porch's edge, red dot on the lead infested, a man in a torn Carhartt jacket, jaw hanging, teeth black. She squeezed. The forced reset trigger popped. Crack, crack, crack. 3 rounds in a blink. His skull exploded, orange ooze and red blood spraying the grass. He dropped. The AR pistol had no suppressor, only a birdcage muzzle brake. It boomed in the chaos with each trigger pull, flames leaving the barrel as it did. Lynn fired, the 9mm carbine barking. Her first shot missed, kicking dirt.
Fuck!
She gasped, hands trembling. She fired again, catching an infested woman in the chest. No good. The freak kept coming, nightgown flapping, claws outstretched.
Head!
Tessa shouted, dropping another with a burst. The AR pistol's recoil was sharp but manageable. The red dot a lifeline. Lynn adjusted, fired again. The woman's head snapped back, brain splattering. She crumpled. The swarm hit the fence. Barbed wire tore flesh, but they didn't care. Some climbed, others ripped through, wood splintering. Odin's barks turned feral, his body coiled. 2 infested cleared the fence, sprinting for the porch. One was fast, freshly turned, a teenage girl in a shredded hoodie, eyes wild. The other, an older man, dragged a leg but moved with purpose, teeth gnashing. Odin launched off the porch like a missile. His 120 pounds slammed the girl to the ground like an NFL linebacker hitting a junior high school running back, his jaws closing on her throat. Blood sprayed, red and arterial, soaking his white fur. Claws raked his side, but Odin didn't flinch. His teeth tore deeper, crunching spine. The girl twitched, then stilled, her parasite dead. The older infested lunged at Odin, claws slashing. Tessa screamed.
Odin!
Fear and rage surged, her AR pistol roaring. She pumped rounds into the man's chest, then head, orange ooze bursting like a popped balloon. He dropped, but another infested charged Odin. A woman, fast, her face half gone.
Odin, back!
Tessa yelled, voice raw. She fired, missing once, then hitting the woman's shoulder. Lynn's carbine barked, catching the freak's neck. It stumbled, giving Odin time to retreat, blood dripping from his flank. Odin didn't back off. He snarled, leaping at the woman, jaws almost snapping her arm clean off. Bone crunched, orange slime spurting ligaments and muscle shredded from his powerful jaws. He was a guardian, ready to die for them, his instincts pure sacrifice. Lynn's hands shook, her shots wild now, adrenaline blinding her.
I can't see,
she gasped, wiping sweat. An infested climbed the porch steps, a burly man in a torn flannel. Tessa swung the AR pistol, red dot on his forehead. Crack. He dropped, brains painting the railing. 10 infested were down, but the rest closed in, snarling, clawing. The coop was trashed, chickens screaming. The Xterra roared into the ranch's drive, Fireball's Jeep screeching behind. Aaron's heart stopped at the sight. Infested swarming the yard. Fence half down. Tessa and Lynn on the porch. Odin, a blood-soaked blur tearing into a freak. Gunfire cracked, but the women were faltering.
Fuck!
Aaron shouted, slamming the brakes.
Hammer! Roof! Fireball! With me!
Hammer leapt out, climbing the Xterra's rack. Creedmoor up. His scope found targets instantly. Crack. An infested's head burst 50 yards out, dropping it mid-sprint. Aaron and Fireball hit the ground running, ARs blazing. They moved like death incarnate, instincts honed from months of training together. Aaron suppressed AR spat. Headshot, torso for good measure. Fireball flanked right, carbine chewing through a pair of infested, their skulls popping like melons.
Tessa, hold on!
Aaron yelled, swapping to his M and P40 caliber as an infested closed in, barking rounds to the chest and head. Several infested fell in heaps. Empty, no time for mag change. He drew the tomahawk, hacking another's neck. Crunch. Orange ooze spraying. Then Hammer's voice cut through.
Second swarm. 20 more. East field. Sprinting.
Aaron spun. Across the field, another wave charged. Fresh infested. Fast. Their screams splitting the dusk.
Hammer, thin him out!
The Creedmoor barked, dropping 3 in seconds, skulls shattering at 100 yards. Hammer was a machine, each shot a death sentence. Tessa saw Aaron and Fireball, relief flooding her.
They're here!
She shouted to Lynn, who was reloading, hands still shaking. Odin limped back to the porch, blood matting his fur, but his growl never faltered. Then headlights blazed. A truck towing a U-Haul trailer screamed into the drive, skidding to a stop. 2 figures leapt out, rifles up, firing into the first swarm's remnants. Jace and Brittany. Jace, all beard and wild-eyed calm, moved like he'd trained for this day his whole life. Brittany followed, ponytail whipping, her pistol work clean and merciless. Aaron recognized them instantly. Jace, another member of team that had trained with Fireball, Hammer, and Aaron. Jace's AR-15 roared, dropping an infested. Brittany's 9mm was surgical, headshots only.
Jace!
Aaron shouted, waving them over. Jace yelled back,
"Looks like we made it in time for the party."
Aaron glanced at the truck. 2 kids, Jace's, maybe 10 and 12, cowered in the backseat, eyes wide. No time for questions. The second swarm hit the yard, 20 plus strong, snarling, claws tearing earth. Aaron, Fireball, and Jace moved like a ballet of death. ARs and pistols singing, tomahawk flashing when ammo ran low. Aaron dropped an infested with a headshot, pivoted, and buried the hawk in another's skull. Fireball's carbine stitched a line of holes across two freaks, skulls bursting, bodies folding and crumpling. Hammer taking the stragglers at distance, Jace tearing through infested with accuracy and merciless intent. Brittany joined the line, their fire disciplined. Tessa and Lynn regrouped, Tessa's AR pistol spitting rapid bursts, Lynn's carbine steadier now, her fear burning into focus. Odin guarded the porch, snarling, ready to leap again. Hammer's Creedmoor kept the second swarm thin, but 5 infested broke through, sprinting for the house. Aaron roared,
"Funnel 'em!"
He and Fireball shifted, drawing the freaks into a kill zone. Tessa and Lynn fired from the porch, dropping 2. Jace's AR took another. Aaron's tomahawk cleaved the last one's skull, orange slime dripping. The yard fell silent, save for Scamp's yapping from the Xterra and Odin's heavy panting. 40+ infested lay in heaps, blood and ooze pooling in the dirt. The coop was silent, chickens dead or fled. Tessa ran to Aaron, throwing her arms around him.
You're here.
She gasped, tears mixing with sweat.
"Always,"
he said, kissing her forehead, then checking her for wounds.
"You okay?"
She nodded, shaking.
Odin, he saved us.
Aaron dropped to his knees, fingers trembling as they sank into Odin's blood-soaked fur. He wasn't just his dog, he was a shield. He was Aaron's best friend, and he'd nearly died playing hero. And now Aaron didn't know what was in Odin's veins. Odin whined, licking his hand, tail thumping weakly.
"Good boy, such a good boy,"
Aaron whispered, checking his flank. Deep scratches, but he'd live.
"I've got to check him out,"
he thought.
"He literally just ate parasite-infested blood. Is my dog now infested? What do I do here? I know dog systems can handle some parasites like Giardia or Microsporidia with no consequences. They can digest the tiny little bugs. But what about these monsters? I'll have to keep an eye on him, take a blood sample, and give him a good scrub down. Dear God, please let him be okay."
Aaron prayed silently. Hammer jogged over, pulling Lynn into a fierce hug.
"You scared the shit out of me,"
he muttered. Lynn laughed shakily.
Yeah, well, I'm still here.
Fireball approached Jace and Brittany, carbine lowered.
"Good timing, man. Who are the kids?"
My kids.
Jace said, jerking a thumb at the truck.
We were holed up till our place got overrun. We knew Aaron's place was the Alamo, so we headed here. We thought we saw your lights, and followed.
Aaron stood, tomahawk dripping.
"Glad you made it, bro. It's damn good to see you. And just in time."
Aaron nodded to Brittany.
"Hi, Brittany. Glad you could join us."
He grinned. Brittany smiled at Aaron.
"Well, you know me. Never one to miss a party,"
she said.
"Are we expecting more guests, or is this it?"
"Hopefully the guest list is full at this point,"
laughed Aaron.
"Let's get you all settled. Then it looks like have we cleanup to do. Fireball, you heading home?"
Fireball responded.
"Yep, gonna take these supplies back and check on the girls. The team's almost all here. Have we heard from the other 3, Boy Scout, Dog, and Junior?"
Hammer's been trying to reach Junior, but nothing so far. He has my address. Hopefully he's en route too,"
said Aaron.
"As for Dog, I imagine his wife has his balls in her purse and isn't letting him come out to play."
Aaron said, laughing,
"She's a real piece of work, that woman is. And Boy Scout is MIA. We've heard nothing."
Fireball sighed.
"Well, with you, me, Hammer, Jace, and enough ammo, we can clear out the houses by me. Soon. I'll hit you up on the radio in a couple days after I do some more recon on the area. By the way, you know we have to go up in town soon now, especially after seeing this clusterfuck and what the store looked like."
"Roger that,"
said Aaron.
"Yeah, I want to know how bad it is, or isn't uptown."
With that, Clint jumped in the Gladiator and headed out. Aaron looked at Tessa, hugged her.
"I'm so glad you're all right. I don't know what I would have done without."
She smiled and just hugged him back. No words needed.
"Oh, I've got someone you need to meet."
Ah. Aaron walked over to the Xterra and opened the door. Out jumped Scamp, the little tan mixed-breed mutt. He ran up to Tessa. She laughed, picked him up.
He's adorable. Looks like an awoke. Scamp, huh? Well, Scamp, glad you could join us. You're safe now.
Laughing.
I said the same thing,
said Aaron. Odin came over, sniffed him, unimpressed. Odin sat down next to Aaron. Tessa said to everyone,
We all need to get decontaminated and cleaned up. Aaron has everything you need set up in the mudroom. We can go through the SOP for it, then get y'all settled.
Everyone nodded and agreed, but they all stood there taking a minute. Aaron, Tessa, Hammer, Lynn, Jace, Brittany, and the kids stood on the porch surveying the damage and carnage. As the sun set, Aaron spoke up.
Tomorrow's going to be a long day.
End of Season 1 of The Blight.
We interrupt this program. This is a national emergency. Important instructions will follow. The following message is transmitted at the request of the United States government. This is not a test.
This is a public service message from the Department of Emergency Management and Civil Protection. If you are receiving this broadcast, you are not alone. Help is available. Order is being restored. All uninfected civilians are instructed to make their way to the nearest federal safety relocation zone. Trained personnel are on site. Medical screenings, hot meals, and secure lodging are being provided at no cost. No one will be turned away. We understand the last few weeks have been difficult, but this is not the time for fear or misinformation. Do not listen to illegal broadcasts. Do not engage in hoarding, armed resistance, or unauthorized travel. These actions endanger lives and may result in detainment. Report all suspicious activity, including unlicensed gatherings and non-compliant individuals. If you have weapons, please surrender them peacefully upon arrival at the safety zone checkpoint. You will not be harmed. This is your country. We are rebuilding together. The threat is being contained. The infection will be controlled. Trust your government. Trust your protectors. And above all, remain calm. This message will repeat every 30 minutes. We are here. We are listening. We are in control.
Zone 3 now processing evacuees. Proceed to Gate 7. All ID bans must be visible. Non-compliance will not be tolerated. Zone 3 now processing evacuees. Proceed to Gate 7. All ID bans must be visible. Non-compliance will not be tolerated.
Hello, this is Redline Actual, broadcasting out of the east side of Cincinnati, east of the river. If you're hearing this, stay the hell away from FEMA checkpoints. I repeat, do not go to the camps. They're calling it a relocation effort, safety camps. But those fences aren't to keep the infected out. They're to keep you in. If they come to designate your neighborhood as a safety zone, you need to get the hell out of there. They will block off your streets with checkpoints and razor wire. If you try to leave after the zone is set up, they will shoot you. They're not helping people anymore. They're disarming civilians, taking supplies, medicine, food, even water. And if you resist, you vanish. Or you will be shot. Family down the street had a garden out back. Feds rolled up and blacked out MRAPS, called it a hoarding offense. Took the dad. No one's seen him since. Infested or government goons, either way, you're safer on your own. Trust your neighbors, trust your instincts, but don't trust the uniform just because it's stitched on straight. If anyone's still out there, there are safe havens in some rural towns. Try to get to one of those if you can. Look for the red SH painted on the town signs from the highways. We are burning the infected, still holding the line. Come heavy, come smart, stay human.